everybody, beautiful people around the world. It is I, your host, Simone.
And I'm Nafis.
And welcome back to I Was Thinking. Yeah. We are back with, we promised we were going to do season 2 of Yumi Cells. I was in charge of this, and I'm going to be honest with you guys, I took down a lot of notes. So we're basically going to get right into it. I love our 5 listeners so much that, because, if you are a reader of webtoons, once the story ends, they kind of lock them up and do like daily passes. And if you want to read any more, you have to use coins. In order to get coins, you need to spend money. So I bought some coins so I can reread Yumi Cells in order to make my comparisons, because I'm going to do a lot of comparisons of the show and the webtoon, because I didn't realize they changed a lot. If you go back and read the webtoon, technically her relationship with Babi was like pretty much a majority of the webtoon. Longer than Wung's, and then it's going to be longer than the third boyfriend. So yeah, I had to buy some coins because I love you guys so much. And I forgot a lot of things. So yeah. But if you want to know how me and Nafis are doing, just real quick, I mean, I'm same old, working all the time, hate my job. Nafis.
Same old, tired as always.
Okay, there we go. So let's jump right into it. I need to do a better job. I mean, I feel like it's implied if we do TV and movie reviews that we're going to spoil things, right?
Yeah, I would hope so.
So yeah. Okay, so yeah. Hopefully you guys have seen season 2, because I'm basically going to spoil the whole show. I did have to go episode through episode just because that's how my brain functioned, to get some notes down so I can remember talking points. But yeah, or if you're just a person who don't care about spoilers, then continue to listen to this and enjoy the show. Hopefully you at least also listen to our season 1 before you listen to season 2, because like the show, it jumps right into like what happened in season 1. So
yep, literally the next frame is
like literally.
Yeah.
So Nafis, any opinions without talking too much about season 2 before we get into it, so I can get a little break from talking, because I'm going to be doing a lot of talking, guys. I always say that as someone who has a podcast, which the main point is to talk. But hey, I don't do this normally in my normal life.
All I'm going to say is that I am team Wung all the way.
Yes.
I wanted to give him okay, let me get this cleared up. He's a great dude. But like he just rubbed me the wrong way, and he still does in season 2.
You talking about Babi?
Yeah.
Okay, because you went from your team.
Is amazing. I like Wung.
Yes.
Yeah.
I will say, because if you listen to our review from season 1, I had a lot of strong outrage towards Babi. I still don't like his character, but at least in the webtoon, I feel like I can sympathize a little bit more.
Really?
But I still feel like yes and no, because, like in books, they give further depths into someone's character. True. But I still don't like what he did. And a lot of the same opinions I had, whether I sort of sympathize or not, are still the same. That hasn't changed at all. So it's just like you said, I feel like deep down, he really is a good person. It's just his actions. And I don't know if he is aware of the certain things he does. He is and he isn't. It's more prominent that he's like aware, but still kind of naive in the novel than it is like in the show. So, especially with like some of the cells that like they change.
In the show, it seems intentional, but like.
Hey. Yeah. And I will bring that up a little bit later, because there's one specific episode that kind of like goes into that. And then I bring up a cell that they excluded from the show that's in the comic that kind of ties it all together. But like I said, we'll get into that a little bit later. Okay. So first of all, I want to reintroduce the characters in case, you guys didn't forget, but we'll just bring it up. So, of course, we have our main character, Kim Yumi, who is played by Kim. Yeah, wow. I'm talking so much. I'm going to start over. So, we are going to reintroduce the main characters, starting with Kim Yumi, who is played by Kim Gon. Again, guys, excuse my pronunciation. I have not practiced my Korean in a very long time, especially speaking it. I know I'm going to butcher a lot of these words and names. And then In season 2, it focused more on her second relationship, which is with Babi, who is played by Park Jin Young. Also, if you're a K-pop fan, you know him from the group GOT7. We have the ex, Wung, who is played by An Bo Hyun. We have our lovely Ruby, who's played by Yi Ub. And she was in the first season. I know we didn't talk about her, but she comes up a little bit more in the second season. And I'm bringing her character up because she was actually a more prominent role in the webcomic than she is in the show. So her character's name is Kang Yida, and she is Yumi's coworker at the company that she works in. And then you kind of see her hanging out with like her, and then later on, like Ruby, outside of work in the show and the comic as well, because they're actually pretty good friends even outside of work. And she is played by the actress Mi Ram, or her real name is Kim Min Young. And then we have the new characters. So first, I only wrote down the new characters who I feel like are important. So the editor of Yumi's book is An Dae Young. That's the character's name. He is played by Jun Suko. Sure, I know I butchered that. Again, guys, I'm sorry. Yu Daon, who is played by Shin Yeun, and Control Z, who's played by Pio. His real name is Pyo Ji Hoon. And he is also a member of the boy group Block B. Feast, why did you start laughing when I...
Because his character is just so interesting, and yeah.
I don't feel like he's as weird in the comic as they made him in the show. He's still a little out there, but they made him a little extra.
I saw him in Hotel de Luna too, and his character there was still extra.
So he might be like that, and it's just his acting.
Could be.
Okay, so I had a discussion with Nafis before we started recording. And before we actually talk about the show, I want to bring up something. Might be a little bit controversial. I mean, it shouldn't be, but you know how people are. Yeah, I said I was going to do a better job at just like talking about stuff that makes me uncomfortable. Will me bringing this up change anything? Probably not, but it doesn't hurt to bring it up.
Yeah.
Bring awareness. Hopefully it makes some type of change or makes like our listeners think. And if they see something like this as well, get the discussion rolling so change could happen. But as we know, in the history of television, movies, everything around the world, you need sponsorships to make shows go through. So especially in like Korean shows, so obvious, not obvious. Nafisa, she didn't notice about product placements, of companies.
Just that particular one.
Just that particular one?
Yeah.
Okay.
But Subway, they make it very obvious, and then,
Yeah, like she said, product placement of like things that sponsor the show, like Subway, I think Chevrolet. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that car company correct. Is that how you pronounce it?
I thought it was Chevrolet or something like that. I don't know.
Sure. Things like that.
I never had to say that word out loud.
I never have either. Like, y'all know what I'm talking about. The car company with the little, like, T.
It's also known as a Chevy, right?
Yes, a Chevy. Okay. So just product placements like that, sometimes in like songs, you'll hear them shout out like Coca-Cola, Sprite. Y'all know what I'm talking about. So there is a particular coffee shop that is a real coffee shop in South Korea that they go to frequently. It's shown in season 1, but not as much as season 2. Like they show it all the time in season 2. They're always at that coffee shop. So the name of it is called, and I don't think I'm going to pronounce this name correctly, Mauritius Brown.
Mauritius.
Is that how you pronounce it?
It's based off the country, right? Named after the country?
Yes.
Mauritius, yeah.
Okay, so you're aware of the country, because I had to do some research before I called you, because I didn't know anything about this, even with the controversy that comes up. So it's named after the island of the same name, which is in the Indian Ocean off the east coast of Africa. And I actually looked up the map to see where it is. So it's a little bit closer to Madagascar. I would say it's off like the southeast coast of Madagascar. So they still count it in the realm of the continent of Africa. So they named it that coffee shop because I guess they use a brown sugar from it, like the brown sugar cane. I don't know, in their coffee or like they just, I don't know how that works. I'm sure they sell it there, but that's not the issue. My main issue with this like coffee shop is that great. That's great. But why is your logo of a black woman and there's no one from that island or like even of black descent that is a part of this company? It's just, and people who aren't like black are just gonna listen to this like, why does it matter? It does, because it kind of comes off as like not characterish. What's the word? There's a specific word for it. Yeah, like caricature, like how they did back then, menstrual, things like that, where they would use aesthetics of different culture and no one of that culture is behind the actual product or creation, things of like that. Because it's like they give her an afro and then I don't know if you didn't even notice the logo, but like if you look closer too, she's wearing a bandana and the colors are red, yellow, and green.
Okay.
So, yeah.
What do the colors represent?
Well, apparently it's supposed to represent Africa, but I'm sure just like most people keep forgetting Africa as a continent and not a country. So there's different countries in Africa that have their own different colors. I know a lot of them are red, yellow, and green, but not all of them are. So that's just another thing where it's like, again, guys, hard for me to explain this type, but again, it's just don't feel it's necessary. Like they could have easily maybe found what the sugarcane looks like and made like a logo based off that. I just don't see the point of it.
So the logo itself bothered you?
Yeah.
I can see why. Especially since there's nobody, like I think in the article it was saying there was like no person related to that island and things like that. It kind of reminded me of that one show, Shooting Stars, where have you seen that one? No?
I didn't see it. I know of it, but I didn't watch it. Like I've seen it when I scroll through Viki, but
the main lead goes to Africa for like a year, and then I think that bit was controversial too, just because of like the appropriation and everything. But yeah, so it's seen everywhere.
I mean, yeah. Hey guys, I'm coming in real quick. So when I was going through and listening to this and editing, I just realized it's not even the logo I have a problem with. It's also the name, because it's called Mauritius Brown, but the country is just called Mauritius. So did they have to add the brown at the end? Again, I know it's from a brown sugar cane, but still it bothers me because this is from a pretty sure predominantly black island. We're all brown. You're gonna add the word brown after the country with mostly black people. You see what I'm trying to go here? They could have named it anything else. It could have just been Mauritius, or so people don't get it confused with the country when you look it up online. Mauritius Coffee Shop, Mauritius Cafe. There's just so many other things they could have done. Just like with the logo. Did not have to be a black woman, especially with an afro. Could have been of the sugar cane. It could have been 1,000 other things. I don't know. It's just, yeah. So it's not just the logo. It's also the name. And maybe they thought they were being clever or like there's no harm in it, especially since they are in a country that is predominantly Korean. But this is what I kind of mean, where like, especially with their entertainment, they're trying to be more global and exposure. And I feel like with that, you just need to be careful of what you're putting out to the other world, because that's how they're going to perceive your country. And honestly, I blame America a lot, especially how they view black people. I know black Americans and Africans are different. Trust me, we got our own different cultures, but still, they're just going to lump us in as all black people. So yes, I do blame America for a lot of it. Even now, I'm not going to get into it. That's not what this episode is about, but I just wanted to come in real quick to point that out. especially if people are listening to this, is like, Simone, why don't you talk about this more since you're a fan of K-pop? I'm like, I do. I don't talk about it on the show, but I do talk about it at least with like Nafis and Brianna off of this. And even then, like our first episode of how we got into K-pop, we did talk about this.
Yeah.
But it's like what I'm saying is like, I wanted to open the conversation, but at the same time, I'm one person. So it's not like me saying this is going to make a huge change. Like it already took back in 2020 for like some of these companies here in America to change stuff like Aunt Jemima and like all these other character like brands of that same nature.
Yeah.
So we just have a long way to go, basically.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. And like companies especially won't care unless they're losing money.
Yeah.
So
that's pretty much how it works in the corporate world, corporate America.
Yeah, pretty much. So I don't know. I feel like they could have just used, and it's not even really a good depiction of a black person, because if you look at the face, the way they draw her face still kind of has like European features. I don't even know if I would have been more mad if like they really took like if they really made her like a black woman, or if like it's the logo that it is, you know, because when I see it, like when they were showing it on the cups, or like when they showed the workers there, we're all like Korean and it's on like their hats that they're wearing or like their aprons. I keep rolling my eyes, but it's just like, you know, just because someone doesn't find a certain thing, like they see a problem with it or make them uncomfortable, doesn't mean that, you know, it's not a problem.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I just wish more people cared. You know, that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to get too much into it because that's not what this show or this episode is about. That's a topic for another day, but I just thought I should at least bring it up. I'm going to link an article once we're done that talks about it more and in better, you know, light than I am doing right now. Because like I said, guys, I'm not used to it, but I said I was going to try to do a better job at least bringing this stuff up. So if you care, please take a read.
Yeah. Were there any other controversials with the show or just that?
I mean, me personally, it's just that. I don't know if there's anything else from like cultures I'm unaware of that they do. I don't think so. But then again, if I'm not in that culture, I wouldn't know. So.
Gotcha.
Let us know, guys.
Yeah.
Because it's important to talk about. There's a difference between appropriation and appreciation. And I think people are starting to get that confused.
Yeah.
So again, I could go on about this because I have plenty more to say, but let's dive into like the actual show.
Gotcha.
Because that's what we're here for. So, but of course, if we keep doing like other shows, I'll bring it up. And especially for people who are like, well, if you don't like it, Simone, stop watching this content. It's not like I can get away from this. This is a global issue. Yeah. Okay? Any type of media that I consume, it's going to be like this. Let me move on because, yes, it's just a global thing, guys. Anti-Blackness is a global issue that is going to take a very long time to solve. So let's get into the show, shall we? Like I said, I had to go through each episode, so I feel like I'm mostly going to talk about, at least in depth, episode 1 and 2, and I think 8 and 9.
Okay.
Because those were big changes that happened. But most of these are really just like bulletin points I wrote down. And some of it's like my own like little commentary that I think I wrote on the side. So to help us get along, Nafis, feel free to jump in if I bring up anything or if you remember something that I don't remember. But I feel like my notes are pretty detailed. Well, hopefully. I wasn't diligent enough to proofread. So if there's a mistake, there's a mistake. You know, I'm only human.
All right.
So like we keep saying, we start right off with the breakup of Wung from season 1. So like it starts off like I think of Wung still, you know, when she watches him slowly walk away at the fountain once they leave and break up. And then we kind of go a little bit into our cells village because there's a cell that's trying to deliver a letter that basically confirms that the breakup is over and like nobody wants to accept it. And I'm like, oh, this is the stages of denial. Yeah, so like in the thing, Pride and Sensitivity basically fight when Yumi tries to call Wung, because once she goes home, it's like, she's sitting in bed. She's like, it's not really over. Maybe I could just call him. Maybe it was a mistake. If you've been through a relationship and had regrets, regrets. I'm sure some people have done that. I wouldn't know, but don't do that. The feast. I didn't mean to say it like that. I don't think I would do that either, though, if I went through a breakup and we both confirmed it was a breakup.
You just move on?
I'd be sad. I wouldn't just move on, but I know not to contact them, especially that night. Like, it's still fresh. You need time to think.
That's true.
She didn't give herself time to think in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, once he doesn't answer, she basically realized that it is over, and then she deletes his contact. And that floods the town. But they were smart this time, and the cells actually build a boat so they don't lose each other.
Huh.
So, and it's kind of cute too. I don't know if anyone noticed it. You might not have, Nafis, but there's a point in shot where they show the boat and there's a logo on it, and it's supposed to look like Yumi, and that's what Yumi actually looks like in the comic.
Oh, okay.
If you rewatch it, just look out for that. So I thought that was cute. And then it does confirm what I was talking about last time. So Love Cell is unconscious. She went back into a coma after the breakup. So, and then we just basically see her go through trying to get better. It takes her a bit. I don't remember how long they said it takes her to recover. Did they say 4 months? I wrote down 4 months, but I might have not heard correctly.
I think it was around, it took her quite a bit of time.
Okay, because I know I wrote this down, because in the webtoon, it says it took her 6 days.
The webtoon, it took her 6 days?
Yeah.
I don't remember the time frame, but I know it wasn't super quick.
They did say months in the show, correct?
I don't remember.
Okay, well.
But I do remember, though, she was quick to bounce back, as in, doing regular activities. She wasn't just moping around.
Right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and everything clears up, sort of. Mm-hmm. And then there's a scene where she's washing her hair and her phone starts ringing and she thinks it's Wung. And then she goes back to being sad. And I wrote down the English translated quote that they said, the moment you think it's over, you get tested. So that was basically her point of getting tested. I know. I felt so bad for her. Yeah. I'm yeah. Breakups can be hard. And even as I said...
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. You go first.
I was just saying, between you, Babi, and Wung, Wung's and hers relationship seemed more genuine than her and Babi.
Yeah, and it's... We'll talk about this a little bit later, but basically... Because, we also didn't say this at the beginning, but they kind of separate each episode into their own little mini episodes. Mm-hmm. So then we start to get into the mini episode of the cells trying to go through the breakup blues cure. And I just thought that whole sequence was funny because Hunger Cell's solution was food. And then that didn't work out because she was, gaining weight. And then Fashions was buying stuff. But then, she's spending money. Yeah. And then Sensitivity was going to to the movies. And then she's surrounded by all these couples and she's by herself. She's dang. And then I think there's a point, I don't know if it was that same night, but then their other solution was for her to drink. That's never a good solution, guys, drink alcohol. And then because she's drinking, she starts getting sad. And then she starts singing. And I'm her neighbors probably hate her right now because she brings out the guitar. I was oh, Yumi, you're going through it right now, girl. But then she gets over it and then clears her head and then starts going through the stuff between them and throwing them away, even though it wasn't really productive because certain things she'd pick up, she kind of contradict herself. You know what? You can't tell this is a couple shirt and it's a good quality shirt, mm-hmm. which actually I kind of agreed with, especially with the necklace too. If that's a gold necklace, why are you throwing that away?
Sell it.
One of them said to pawn it. Yeah. And to sell it. Would you do that? I don't know.
I'd probably still keep it and just put it away somewhere and not look at it again, but I'd keep it.
Well, you might as well sell it if it's just going to collect dust in your drawer.
I'll sell it when I need to, but I'm not just going to sell it just for the sake of forgetting somebody. Mm-mm.
Not for money?
I take inflation into account, and it always increases year by year.
You know what? That's smart. I understand.
Yeah.
I get it. So then, like, moving forward, I don't remember who it was. I know it was one of the coworkers in the marketing department. Because someone asks us a question about Bobby, and that kind of gets Yumi to start, questioning and becoming curious about him. And that's kind of like when the
It was
whole
Ruby.
was it Ruby?
Questions her. It was Ruby, yeah.
Oh.
And that's when she's
okay.
like, I don't know anything about Bobby. So she like starts to pay more attention.
Mm-hmm. And going through like, what does he like, Oh, was this because when Ruby was still trying to set him up on the blind date, she needed information?
Yeah.
Yes, now I remember, because she's like, Yumi, you're close with him. What is he like? So I can try to see, match him up with a good blind date, which apparently is a thing they do a lot over there.
But
so I don't know if I can do that.
What, blind dating?
Yeah.
If it's from a friend I trust, I probably would. But if it's just like a random coworker, probably not.
That's true. Because I don't know if that'd be considered the same thing of like online dating now.
I mean, the concept is still the same, but it's still different because you still have like that middleman, which is your friend or your coworker, whoever. So
that's true.
Similar, but not really.
But I feel like it gets awkward if you guys break up because you did have that middleman. Depends how close you are with that middleman, though.
That's true.
Yeah. Anyway, we're going to keep going. Like I said, guys, I got a lot of notes. I got to try to get through all this. But that's when the cells, one by one, start becoming like infatuated with Bobby. And then like we find out there's a fan club. And like a fan club is basically like all of Yumi's interests. Now, remember back in season 1 where I said, look out for the head security guard, because we find out he is not only in the fan club of Bobby, which he didn't trust Bobby at first. He is the president of the fan club.
Yes. I was so shocked. I was like, oh my God. In the depths of her cells. There we go.
It's always the one you don't think about.
And I love how they try to keep it so secretive too. And then one by one, each cell comes.
Yes, like when they find out like the books he reads, and then like his kindness, interest in music, all that same stuff. And I also thought it was cute with the fan clubs real quick because it shows Yumi's interest. They paid like a little homage to Mino from SHINee because they said that's her favorite K-pop idol. And he was in season 1. So I just thought that was a cute little tribute to him. But then through all of that, because all the cells are like infatuated, Bobby basically ends up asking Yumi out on a date. Not really, kind of plays. He doesn't really say it's a date. But we all know it's a date. And they go see a band that I think he introduced her to. Yeah, in the park that night. Idea. Yes. Then, they end the night. They get ice cream, keep talking. And Bobby's all bold. So he basically asks Yumi out on a date.
By the end of episode 1.
Yes. So then episode 2, we continue with Bobby's confession. We see a glimpse of the cells going through a crisis of when he confesses.
And Yumi's Pikachu shocked face.
Because I don't know if she's used to guys being that direct with her, like that bold.
I don't think so, but
I think that is one of the things she always mentions about why she liked Bobby so much, because he's very straightforward. So, and I thought this one part was interesting, like when Reason was trying to, be the reasonable cell, and then he calls like the health cells, and like the little director of that says like her self-esteem skyrocketed. So he's like, oh, it's fine. I don't know if I have a problem.
But it's true though. People's self-esteem does rise when someone confesses to them. So I guess that's what they're trying to show.
That's true. I think so. And it's all funny. Like after he talks to them, all the cells in the background, they're chanting like it's okay. They're like, Winjana. And like, it's fine. Go out with him. We all want to date him. But like his reasons, like, the prime cell isn't here. I guess in that little town, they can't do anything without Love Cell because she is like the big boss, the prime cell. So that's really Reason's like whole rationale of being hesitant at first.
And I like that. I liked that. Yeah. That he actually waited for her to wake up and make a decision.
Yeah. So like she does actually end up rejecting him at first. And then, he almost gets mobbed by all the other cells for making Yumi say no.
Yeah.
But then after that, I guess what they call the princess syndrome, she starts developing. Like she kind of makes everything revolve around her when it comes to Bobby, and then like kind of gets jealous when his focus isn't on her anymore. So I thought that was interesting because it's like, well, girl, you rejected him. Why are you, you know?
Why are you upset? But was he actually ignoring her though, or not?
He wasn't, but I think she just noticed more like maybe because he had a crush on her that he was giving her special treatment, which I guess you can go into the whole thing of like, especially when it comes to like office romances, how that can be dangerous, but you know.
Yeah, that's one of the cons of office romances, but hey.
Yeah. So this doesn't really pertain to like the story, but like I just wrote down I need Hunger Cells ordering skills at a restaurant.
Oh yeah.
You know, when her, Ruby, Bobby, and the coworker Ida all go. And I'm like, dang, do I really need to start paying attention to like the menus? But I don't feel like restaurants I go to have specials like that. Or it's usually specials of food I don't eat.
Probably. I do notice that, but it's mostly stuff I don't eat, so it's like, why bother?
Yes. But I did enjoy that scene a lot. So it was very funny. But then I basically just wrote like the rest of the episode, we just watched basically Yumi fall more and more for him. And then it basically ends with Ruby on the phone with Yumi. And she's basically telling Yumi that Bobby finally agreed to go on a blind date with one of Ruby's friends.
I felt like that whole sequence, though, was kind of forced because, like, I felt like it came out of guilt. Like, because she rejected him and then she felt guilty about it. And so now, like, that kind of like...
I think that's why it bothered me.
I was like, it wasn't a genuine curiosity. It was because he stopped being, like, so... What's the word?
Extra.
Yeah, extra towards her, or like catering towards her, or always keeping her in mind, including her in things.
Yeah.
It felt like it was guilt-driven, which was not genuine in my eyes.
I could see that.
Huh?
No, I said I could see that. I couldn't think of a word for that, but I see that more now that you bring that up, because I was wondering why it bothered me so much, because like I feel like even really from the beginning, Yumi honestly, as far as like a relationship, didn't have, any interest in Bobby. And if she wasn't so traditional, I feel like they would have been great friends. Yeah. That's really the whole thing. I'll bring it up more once we're done, but like I feel like they should have just been more of a friendship than a relationship.
Now, Wung and her were a great relationship.
Yes. And especially like the way Bobby would like, I mean, I know he had a crush on her, but like, we'll get into it more, but I'll bring it up now. Like the reason I say I sympathize a little bit more also in the show too, because like I didn't realize until I was rewatching it how much he really did encourage her to like follow her dreams. Especially even in the marketing, like he encouraged her to leave the accounting to start writing for marketing, and then through all that gave her, the encourage to quit her job and pursue to be a writer. So he really did help her, but I feel like,
which is a huge step.
Yes. And supported her. Yeah. But I feel like he could have done that in a friendship way. So, because that goes into the whole Yumi thing of like guys and girls can't be friends. So we're not going to go into the whole topic again. You all know I feel like that's stupid. So no matter how many ways I try to say it. And I guess I mixed up my cells or not my cells. Dear Lord, my bulletins, because I forgot to mention, I guess this is also the episode where Love Cell wakes up, because there's a part where like her and Bobby are at the bus stop and they're talking. And I don't remember what he says, but he says something like basically, what was it? I think it was like, because he, you know what? Now I'm getting mixed up. What was it that he said? Because it was pretty important. Oh, it was about like basically how he doesn't want to go home because, like when you're around someone you really like, you never want to stop talking to them or something like that.
Oh, yes.
And Yumi felt the same way. So that kind of awakened her love cell. And I guess like solidified that she really is falling for him, quote unquote. So
still guilt driven, but okay.
The fees.
What? That just whole thing just seemed really forced, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah. So, okay, at the end of when I'm done talking about the episodes is where I wrote down the comparisons between the webtoon and the show. So this is one of the really big ones that I found out about later when I was rereading everything. So first, I'll start off when they initially went off to the restaurant. So in the web comic, Ruby didn't actually join them when they all went to the restaurant. It was just Yumi, Babi, and Ida. And then I just wrote like a funny thing of like the waiter. We saw more of him going through like a crisis of like when Yumi was, you know, ordering everything and like finding all the hidden details. It's so funny. I highly encourage you guys to read that part. Or just, I mean, honestly, read the whole webtoon. It's really good. And you'll see more sides of like side characters. But the biggest thing that they changed in the show to the webtoon is that her coworker, Ida, actually had a really big crush on Babi.
Really?
Yes. And Yumi knew that also before she even started to like think about having feelings for Babi. And so when Yumi starts questioning like what's so great about him is because Ida actually asks him asks Yumi, excuse me, that initial question of what Babi is like, because she's trying to get information because she has a crush on him.
Yeah, they completely erased that storyline in this show.
Yeah. Because in the show also, Rational Cell doesn't want to date Babi because Love Cell isn't awake and he's still unconscious. But in the webtoon, it's because of Yumi's priorities. Because after she broke up with Wung, Yumi became her own priority. And it is because she feels bad about Ida having a crush on him also.
Oh, okay.
And also she didn't want rumors to start going around in the office of them dating and people judging her.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because then later on, Yumi actually does confront Ida and lets her know that she is starting to have feelings for Babi. And they actually do get into a fight about it. And she's hurt. And then, like, I think this is before they even start dating. Office, like, gossip actually does go around that Yumi and Babi are dating. And then, like, a rumor starts that Yumi left her ex-boyfriend for Babi. Which is why it took Yumi so long to actually start going out with him. So
that makes sense actually. But they completely like eliminate that from the show. So
completely changed it. So I was really shocked when I was rereading this. It's like, I don't remember this at all. So that's what I mean by, that's why I wanted to bring up her coworker Ida, because she actually plays a bigger role in the comic, especially during that beginning of the relationship with Babi, than she does in the show. So, and I mean, she does play an important part of the show because she kind of replaces Yumi's other friends that they bring up and makes her like one of the main friends, her and Ruby. I didn't realize in the comic, Yumi and Ruby don't actually hang out as much as they do in the show. But hey, I mean, the less extra like actors you need, the better. And I'm sure they didn't want to drag it out because the main point of the show is really just to focus on Yumi and Babi. That's why I always say, like, when it comes to like adaptations from like webcomics or books, it's always nice to go and read them because you get a deeper in depth of like the characters and side stories and how the side stories help the main stories. And in the show, you know, they have time limits. So just want to put that out there.
But, you know, I'm actually kind of glad they got rid of that whole storyline because it wouldn't have been as linear as it was, which I liked, that it was just straightforward, just them.
Yeah, and like we see that story played out like all the time, especially in shows. So like I don't mind it either that they got rid of that. So, and thankfully it doesn't ruin their friendship. Like they do end up talking it out and becoming, you know, they're still friends. Because there's a part where like they are trying to avoid each other. I remember in the webcomic, and they walk past each other, and Ida was like, because they go out and eat all the time. She's like, I'm mad at Yumi, but I really wanted to ask her about like the specific food. And I was like, oh, love friendships that come together over food.
Right.
Because that's how I am. Yeah. I love to eat, guys. So let's move on. I didn't really write much for episode 3, just that like Yumi's jealous. You know, she tells Babi. He pretends that he went on the blind date, but we find out he really doesn't. Confesses that she likes him, and then they start dating. You can watch the show or hopefully you already seen the show to know what I'm talking about. That I need to really point out everything that happened. So I'm going to go ahead and move on to episode 4. I just wrote down about like Yumi's electricity going out. And then so she goes over to Bobby's place, and then I put, oh, they're still so modest and conservative.
Oh, I do want to mention though, when Naughty Cell comes into play, he's my favorite. So funny.
Yo, my favorite. I love
It's like, oh my gosh.
that's my cell right there. He's so
Naughty Cell
funny.
is so funny. Like, he doesn't even try to hide it.
He doesn't. That's why he's the naughty cell. So, and then I also just wrote, I thought it was cute, like after that whole night, when they wake up in the morning, I did think it was cute, like how they were like telling each other things to make each other's like heart flutter. So like you saw once they said something, each cell, that it affected, like they would get spoofed up with like some type of dust and be all swooned. So I thought that part was cute. I wrote how she goes back to seeing her parents, and I love how her parents just wants to feed her.
And the mom gets the two of them confused, Babi and Wung.
I was just about to bring that up because I guess this shows how much she really talks to her parents about, you know,
her personal life,
her relationships, which I mean, you don't really have to explain everything, but yeah. So, because I don't even know if she talked about Wung when she was dating him.
I think she briefly mentioned it, but not like details.
Does she, or does her mom find out a different way? I thought her mom found out, and but Yumi didn't tell her. But she found out another way.
That could also been it.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't remember.
I don't remember, but she's basically like, why didn't you bring Wung over? And then like Yumi had to tell her that they broke up. And then she's like, oh, but I heard you on the phone outside. And it was really, she was talking to Babi, so it wasn't Wung.
Yeah.
What else happened? Oh, I think I also wrote in the webcomic, because I think her parents come and see her. She doesn't actually go see them. But that whole scene, basically, her and Babi weren't dating yet. She was still rejecting him. But that whole confusion still happened. But like, she couldn't claim him as her boyfriend because they weren't dating yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they are dating. And then like me and Nafis said earlier, this is around the time where Yumi actually does quit her job to follow her dream to become a writer. And it's funny, like, especially like when you work in corporations, like the manager was asking, he's like, well, why are you leaving? Is it something we're doing? Are you not happy here? And he's like, no, I just, you know, tired of corporations, want to actually follow my dream. And
How does that conversation come up though?
Which conversation?
They were on a date, I think, about her quitting her job and like.
I don't remember if they explicitly bring up why she suddenly quits. I know they do in the webcomic, which I'm blanking on.
I do remember they go on like a date on like his favorite places, and one of them is like a bookstore.
Yes.
I think that's probably where.
So it's at a bookstore, which is also like a publishing company.
Oh, yes.
Yes, because he tells her how he applied, you know, to work there and he didn't get the job, which is funny because that's actually the publishing company that I'll explain a little bit later. I mean, I can explain it now. Basically, it's the same publishing company that starts publishing her book. And the person that actually got the job that he applied for is the guy who becomes Yumi's editor. It's a big circle, you know? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we didn't actually see her quit in the webcomic. We're just like, you know, she just briefly mentions that she stops working there.
Gotcha.
So, but I mean, good for her. That's really hard to do, especially like when you quit for stuff like in the arts and like creative world. Because like, I feel like this is a universal thing, how parents tell you, you know, be realistic and get a job. Hey, if I could do that, honestly, I would. But hey, real life, inflation, bills.
Yes.
And I also don't live alone. So it's like, it's one thing if I was doing that and I lived by myself, but I do actually still live at home because, you know, inflation, bills, all that good stuff. So I kind of need a job, but that's why I do this on the side. Because, you know, maybe something will come out of it. Not everyone is lucky enough to be that one to get discovered and make it their job. And then that goes into the whole thing of like, well, should you keep your job and your hobby separate? It works for some people. It doesn't work for everybody. But still, Yumi's going to give it a try. And I'm sure she also got backlash because people, especially like her friends and her parents, thought she was too old to be doing this because she's 32.
Yeah.
Which, again, 32 is not too old, but hey.
No, the friend was like, "So, do you have a backup plan? Like,
Oh, we'll
how are
get
you
it.
gonna
We'll
do
get into that
this?"
a little bit later because like I have
Yeah,
some questions on that. But anyway, I think we're gonna go ahead and so what also happened at the a little bit towards the end is we're getting closer to Christmas Eve. And I hope you guys notice there's a pattern with Christmas Eve. All the big events happen to Yumi at Christmas Eve. So I
yeah.
wrote the cute little scene where like Bobby asks what they plan to do if they should go to a restaurant or like to his place. And then like she's like, I can't express how I want to go to his place. And then like in her mind, she gets up if he asks her if he wants to go to his place, she starts dancing. I wrote that because I saw on Twitter, I'm not sure if it's accurate or not. Someone said like she's actually doing like a bit of the choreography of Got Seven's Just Right when she gets up and dances like that. I haven't watched that music video in a
Oh,
while, but I just thought that was a
mm-hmm.
cute thing because, you know, Jin Young, that's his group. So that they added that in there.
Makes sense.
But then closer to the end is when we realize Yumi's running out of funds because she's not working. So she
Mm-hmm.
starts looking around and seeing things she can sell, and she sees a rice cooker. So she tries to sell the rice cooker, and she gets into a debate with a username, Patdol. I know I'm not saying that correctly. Going back and forth with him, like, it's this much price. And he's like, I'm a college student. Can you bring it down a little bit? And she's like, I'm unemployed. So the price is what the price is. I need money. Because later.
I don't know why, the second they started that whole like selling thing, I knew who it was.
Did you?
And lo and behold, yeah, I did.
It is Wung, which
Yeah.
I put in parentheses. He is looking good. With a capital T at the end. Dear Lord, that is a fine man, okay? I'm sorry. Maybe I am a little biased because he's good looking, but like, oh my God.
He's a good looking dude. It is what it is.
Listen, the author draws him handsome and like just the actor himself is handsome. And it's just like, oh God.
Yeah.
He's so hot. Okay, moving on. So that ends episode 4. So we're gonna go into episode 5. So this is basically where we start seeing Wung's point of view, after the breakup and how he's doing. And it's not good. But then we also get into like, I'll call it a dream sequence. So Wung basically kind of goes back to all the major points that happened that kind of led to their breakup. And he's like imagining basically what would have happened if he wasn't so prideful and so like short answered with stuff. And he actually answered Yumi in those certain situations, like with the fight at the grocery store. If he was actually honest and told her when he picked her up from the bus stop, I'm acting this way because, I'm low on funds. My business is going under. I'm just feeling really down. It is not because of you. I'm just feeling low because of my personal financial situation. And then another memory of like, I forgot about the time when they were like in the churro line around the time of the wedding. And like, he was kind of complaining about waiting in line so long. So he wanted to leave, and they play back of like, maybe there's a long line for a reason. Let's stop and wait. And it shows them cutely like sharing churros. So things like that. And the biggest one, the reason, and I didn't mention this in season 1 because I forgot it happened, but the real reason Yumi was kind of like, okay, I'm officially over it, is because that text that she sent, that really long text of like, basically saying she had so much fun, kind of thanking Wung for like being there. And when he shortly responded back, like, me too, or like, K.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And then it shows the scenario of if he was actually being honest. So I just thought that was interesting because I'm sure we all been through that. Like, what if I did this instead of this? Kind of regret,
all the
but
time.
like, yeah, regretfully or just like reflectively. It's up to you to decide which one it really is.
Yeah. But the main reason though was because of his company and everything. Like he just didn't want her to be with somebody who was not financially stable.
And I said that I didn't know if that was like, goes into the masculinity thing of like, I cannot provide for her, that in terms of that, I am a failure. That's why I thought it was important when he was reflecting through all that, like if he did voice that, what could have happened. Yeah. So, and we'll never know.
I think she would have supported him though. She's very reasonable. So too. I've said this before. Yeah.
No matter how much flack we give Yumi, she can be reasonable, sensible, and like very caring of others that she really cares about. So I feel like if they really did have that conversation, they could have made it work.
Yeah.
But then again, you have to think of like, if they did, would they be where they are now?
What do you mean?
Like, if they stuck by it, would Wung have become the person he is today? And would if Yumi had the courage to become a writer?
Oh,
yeah.
No.
That's what I mean.
I don't think so.
So it's like...
No. Because remember when she wanted to go to marketing, he was like, why would you go to marketing? Stay where you are, because you know what that's like. But he said it from the perspective of like his business was already not doing so well and he didn't want her to suffer. So
yeah, I was saying he was already down about his own thing. And like he did, I think that was also around the time. I don't know if that was the time like he was living with her or not, but you know, it's
I don't think so. That was like newer. They were like just started dating, I think. Yeah.
Okay. I guess he just didn't want both of them to be in financial struggles is what I'm trying to say. So, because he maybe...
Yeah, he was definitely the more realistic one. And Bobby was like, go chase your dreams.
Who knows if he would have said that if his company was doing well, if he wasn't, you know, going through all that.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, even after like she didn't take his advice, he was still pretty good. Like he got her like the top of the line keyboard and everything. So
yeah, he was still very supportive of her.
I just feel like they really, really could have made it work.
The feelings. You're literally me when I'm watching this whole thing of like, but could you have not just, you know?
I know.
Push through. Like I said, I don't think I've ever rooted for fictional character ships as I did Yumi and Wung in anything I've ever watched.
Oh, same here, but I typically do that for like the second leads, but this is like the first time where I wanted the main leads to be together.
Lead, yes.
Yeah. And I'm like, you guys are doing so great. Come on. But I knew in the back of my mind he wasn't going to last us. I just wanted to see what went wrong. And then lo and behold.
Because it truly wasn't, honestly, it wasn't just bad. It was mostly a lot of just miscommunication of real life situations. So that's what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
It's just stuff we'll never know, which also happens in real life.
Yeah.
So.
Could have worked. That's all I'm saying.
I know. Well, let's get back into this. So, like, because we find out the reason he was always like that is because his actual prime cell is pride. So there comes to a point, especially after Yumi and Wung find out they were the ones talking to each other to sell this rice cooker. And I thought it was so funny. You know that scene where like Love Cell basically takes Pride to the mountains. He's like, I'm gonna show you somewhere great. And he just abandons him there. And he blows up the bridge. He's like, you are getting in the way of Wung's happiness.
You gotta do that sometimes.
You do. You really have to, well, I don't know, abandon pride or like put it aside and think like, is me being prideful really helping me or is it like hurting me? So.
Yeah. Most of the time though, it ends up hurting just because you have like so many cool opportunities, but you get in your own way, you know?
Yeah. Oh, girl.
So
I know from experience. So, and I still do that sometimes, but it's like a little bit trying to learn.
Yeah. But I think it's less of pride and more of like lack of confidence with him though. But it could be a mix of both.
I think it's a mix of both. Because I don't think he's not that confident, to be honest. But I do think pride gets in the way of a lot and it might affect its confidence.
Yeah.
In certain situations. So it's a mixture of both, but pride did have to go. So I appreciate Love for doing that, especially after he saw Yubi. And then I just had a quick question for you, like how you would have reacted in that situation when they did meet each other again, because they almost got me in the show and in the comic when at first I thought they were actually being, you know, cordial and grown up and they're asking each other how we're doing. And that's not what happens at all. So,
oh, yeah. You know, when they played that scene, I was like, oh, my God, they're so mature.
Right.
And then it was just like an imaginary situation. No, I'm like, oh, God.
Yumi's quick. She's short. She's like, you know, oh, it's you. Here's your thing. You know, here's the price. We agreed on this price and he wouldn't take the extra $5. So,
yeah. But to answer your question, I wouldn't know because I haven't been in that situation. So,
true. Because with that, I also wanted to know how you felt especially the second time she goes back to see him to give him the picture. And, you know, Bobby sees that someone texted her and he quickly figured out that it was Wung. But he's like, I trust Yumi. But during that whole thing, we see that Bobby actually ran into Wung before, when Wung was working at the company that he's working at now after his business went under. It's the same company that Sei actually left before the business truly went under and started working at. So, you know, I guess they still kind of kept in contact because they were friends, and she got him and Lewis a job there, so they wouldn't be completely broke off their asses.
Yeah.
But, you know, because when they run into each other, Wung asks how Yumi is doing, and Bobby didn't tell him that they're dating. Now, at first I had a problem with this, but second time I watched it and I was thinking about it, I'm like, you know, as much as, you know, they're not friends, and I really don't feel like it was Bobby's place to tell him that. So I'm not upset that he didn't say that they were dating. He doesn't truly own Wung that information.
Yeah.
It would have been more important coming from Yumi, because they did have that closeness and relationship, than from Bobby.
Also, didn't he feel bad about it too, which is why he didn't mention it?
I think so.
I think he felt bad about it.
I couldn't really tell if he felt bad about it or not.
But either way, I'm glad he was not the one. I'm glad he wasn't the one to mention it.
Now, do you think Bobby should have told Yumi, though, that he ran into Wung? Because when he went back to the company, he also hid from Yumi that they ran into each other.
I think he should have. Because, like, what would have happened? Yeah, what would have happened if he told her?
Right.
She'd be like, oh, okay. But yeah.
You don't think any lingering feelings would have came up, and that's what he was afraid of? Because I think that's why he didn't tell her.
I mean, yeah, they would have come up, but like, she's loyal, if anything. So I don't think it would have affected them. But I understand his concern too, at the same time.
Yeah.
Which brings me to a point that I want to discuss later, but you know.
Okay. You want me to keep going? You want to discuss it now?
Yeah, you can keep going. No, you can keep going.
Okay. And then just towards the end, I wrote, like, again, difference between web and the show. So actually, so his name, I forgot they also changed his name in the comic and show. Woogie, who's his name in the comic is actually Woog. He is the one that actually told Yumi that Wung's company went under, because she tried to send the poster off, and that's the same in the show too, but it got returned back to her job and not at her house like in the show. So that's how he was able to tell Yumi that Wung's company went under, because she found out through social media, was putting pieces together through Lewis's social media, that the company actually went under. Because if you guys remember, when they were initially breaking up, Wung told Yumi that he got a great, you know, opportunity and things. He was basically lying. Like, things are going well. I have like opportunities coming up. And that opportunity is joining a corporate company because I lost my startup. So.
And I think that's when she started feeling bad and everything, right? And she's like, always wants to take care of him and yada, yada, yada.
Yeah. And then like the whole of Bobby running into Wung didn't happen in the comic, obviously. So, because in the show, I don't know how long they were dating when they ran into each other, and how far along his and Yumi's relationship were. Was it fresh?
I'm not sure either. They don't really mention it, I don't think.
They don't. I'm sure it doesn't matter, but that's just me, like, you know, try to look more into it. I am Detective Cell. Like, I need to know every little detail.
But I will say, though, I'm really glad that Bobby trusted her to take care of her own business, because she did end up coming back and not letting her nurturing feelings get in the way of that.
I am going to bring up my opinions on that a little bit later, because later on something happens and it's brought up again in the show. I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yes,
so
I do.
will wait for that. Okay. So on to episode 6. So this is what we started talking about. Again, this must be the culture thing where keep in contact with people you went to school with, whether you were friends or not. When Yumi meets up with her, her schoolmate, I don't know if it's college or like primary, but like this is what you were talking about when they start talking about their jobs because they haven't seen each other in a while. And the girl she meets, like she's talking about how she got promoted to section chief and then Yumi's jobless, because the beginning of the episode talks about how Yumi has stars and it affects her mood. And like when all the stars are at 5, that's when she's at her like highest mood, but that can also be dangerous because it can deplete real quickly. And it goes through all the different scenarios of like what fills up her stars and what's get rid of it. So that whole time at the restaurant, basically when her colleague at the time is like asking her like, what, you don't have a job? What are you going to do for money? All that good stuff. And you see her stars start depleting. And then she brings up a story of like how she has a friend whose sister also tried to be a writer. And she's like 45 and she failed. So now she's like in the psych ward. And I'm like, girl, so much for encouraging.
Why would you mention that?
Are we actually friends? I would have left. I would have been forget the dinner.
But I will say though, she wasn't saying it like to bring her morale down. She was actually kind of concerned. Like, girl, what are you doing? Like type thing.
I know, but the way she was coming off was very passive aggressive.
Yeah.
Like I definitely would have been a little hurt. Like I understand your concern, but like maybe I'm just sensitive. Because I understood Yumi in that scene. I was like, okay, thank you for the encouraging words. And that you're rooting for me. There's a way of being concerned without being harsh.
That's true.
So, but I mean, Yumi did get her back at the end when they're waiting for the bus. Remember, like how her coworker was like, I don't want to go to work tomorrow because I guess it was Sunday. And Yumi's like, wait a minute, I could sleep in. I don't have to go to work tomorrow. And then she checks the temperature. She's like, oh no, it's going to be like negative 20 degrees, dress warmly. And we saw how her friend's star started depleting. I thought that was so funny. So I was like, yes, Yumi, get back at her with the passive aggressiveness and the kind, sweet way that you do.
Speak up for yourself, girl.
Exactly. So, and then she's like, good luck at work tomorrow as she waves her off. Okay, so then like other things that happen in the episode is like Yumi's parents actually make a surprise visit and they meet Babi for the first time. So that also was interesting. That doesn't happen in the comic, but yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that doesn't happen. I don't even know. So
her parents and him never meet?
I think they do meet, but it's under different circumstances. I meant the whole like scenario of like because yes, it does happen in the comic because that whole handshake thing with between her father and Yumi does happen. But I meant like her father trying to like fix that shelf and like hurts his back and all that. So gotta add some comedy into it. So speaking of families, I love
how the mom was just down with everything though.
She has a very supportive mom, which is nice to see. So she's just rooting for her daughter. At the end of the day, no matter what she does. I mean, she does have her concerns because I'll bring that up again later too. But speaking of families, Yumi actually overhears Babi talking to his sister, I think, about like being next in line or like taking over something. And then Yumi gets in her head that like, is Babi secretly, they call it Chable over there, which is basically like a rich kid. Yeah, is he rich? Is he from a successful, company? Is he supposed to be next in line to inherit the throne? All that good stuff. And I thought it was really funny. Is it in this episode or is it in the next episode? It's in this episode. Like how the cells were like playing a little like dramatic of like a scenario that was going on. So like Sensitivity was pretending to be the father.
And their ability to create stories is so funny.
It's so funny because I definitely would have been like Cheapskate where like Sensitivity hands over like the envelope, like that's how much I will pay you to stay away from my son. And she looks at the envelope and the director's like, that's not how it's supposed to work. You are supposed to rip it up. Right. And then when they restart the scene, she's like, my love for Bobby Strong's like, but you didn't check the envelope. And she tries to open it again. Like, how much money's in there? A whole scene got me dying because honestly, I might have done the same thing. And have been like ripped it up. You're like, no, it's not worth it. Maybe, you know what? I'm gonna just keep this on the side. Right. Hey, Hey, you
Could
got
be
it.
of use later.
Listen, we ain't got time to go over it. Okay, but anyway, so then after messing with her for a little bit, he goes out for a bit. He comes back with tteokbokki, which I don't know if it's really highlighted in the show like it is in comic, but that's Yumi's favorite like street food. She's like obsessed with tteokbokki. But when he brings it back, he shows her the bag and it's his name. So she realized he's a successor of a tteokbokki restaurant, which actually makes her fall for him even more.
Yeah. And he's like, what were you expecting?
Right.
to be a chaebol of some conglomerate?
And I'm not going to lie, I just wrote the scene down because I thought it was funny. The whole scenario of the cells and they're pretending to be in outer space and the right hand when they're making out, you know, and landing on the planets and the planets are supposed to be his butt. It's like...
yeah.
That scene had me dying, especially with
hilarious.
like Nadi's cell. And they're acting like, you know, the landing on the moon. It was adorable. It's so funny how they can make like such a...
It was really creative the way they had that done.
It was. Just like a scenario that's like not so innocent, but they turn it innocent. But you know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
It was just funny. I just thought that was so cute. So I brought this up. Did I bring this up now or did I move it down to later? Okay, so I brought one part up now, but I'll bring up the rest later. So in the webtoon, instead of like bringing the tteokbokki to Yumi's house, Babi actually takes Yumi over to the restaurant. So she actually meets his father, which she doesn't meet till literally the last episode of the show, a lot earlier in the relationship. And this is before in a major event that happens that I'll talk about. But like she meets his father and all that scenario that happened in the restaurant a lot earlier in the webcomic than it does in the show. So just to let you guys know. And
that was a point of concern for me. Like they got engaged and everything and she had not met his father yet.
That's
like, that
what I
weird.
was saying. Like I know there's some weird like traditions of like meeting the parents. I'm like, bro, y'all are planning to get married and you haven't even met his family? Not talking about like even if he's gonna like you or not, but just like met them?
Meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did think that was a little weird. They waited till like the very last episode to do that. And after, I was trying to wait, but like after they get engaged, and I'm doing quotation marks for people that can't see me because that whole mess. Whew. Anyway. So let me keep going. So moving on to the next episode, we open up to Ruby and Ida and they're playing a game and it is called Bow Wow Time. So hopefully you guys remember that game and like the creation because yeah, it's very important. It's the hottest new game coming around. So then we also see Yumi starting to work at a bookstore part-time because she's running out of money, guys. And then we also learned that she's entering her 11th writing contest. That's a lot of writing contests. And from that point, because she hasn't won any of them. So when Yumi's at the bus stop, she FaceTimes Babi, and we actually learned that he got transferred to Jeju and to work at that office building. So now they're actually in a long distance relationship. And then after that, she looks to see about the contest and she finds out she didn't win. And then she becomes, you know, all sad despite all the praises she was getting. She finally thought this might be the contest that really pushes her forward to become a writer. And then her old boss actually contacts her to see if she wants to go back to the accounting department and work part-time there. And so, you know, she gets all ecstatic. She texts her mom and then her mom's like, oh, thank God you're working again. You know, I'm always supporting you. But like, you know, as we were talking about a little bit earlier, she's supportive, but at the same time, she was like, and I understand because the way the world works, trying to be realistic. So I don't know if her comment hurt Yumi in any way, but she gets excited basically of the potential of working again. But sadly, luck is not on Yumi's side because her boss ends up calling her when she lands in Jeju and tells her like they already had people lined up for those 2 positions I was talking about. So forget that I asked you to come and work part-time. So that doesn't go through.
Sorry.
Yeah, pretty
He
much.
should have verified, honestly, before he brought it up.
I mean, but he didn't know. He said he found out after he talked to Yumi that he talked to the
Yeah.
other big boss. Yeah, you know how they like to do sometimes, like if they have a job opening and like they interview people, but they already have someone else in mind. So it's just like, but then actually, I said luck wasn't on her side, but it actually is because she gets a text from a chief editor at a publishing company. And that's when we get introduced to chief editor An Dae-young, who actually read her story throughout the contest. And even though she didn't win, he liked it enough and wanted to publish it. So, you know, yay. Yumi's going to become an official writer. Tells everybody she's so excited enough to where Ruby and Ida drop everything to fly over to Jeju to celebrate, which I thought was like, dang, those are some good friends there.
Right. Oh, but he was there though, wasn't he?
Who?
Oh, I'm skipping parts.
You are skipping parts. I just said she went to go visit Babi. Yeah.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
I say that?
You froze for a second, so I didn't hear you say that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I said she was on a plane to Jeju. I guess I don't think I specified that she was visiting Babi since they're in a long-term relationship now. That's when her boss calls her when she's getting off the plane because she's visiting him. So, but after she tells everybody, her friends come and visits both of them, even though it was supposed to be a trip for just her and Babi. But hey, he seemed cool with it. No complaints. So they all hang out at his place and celebrate, going out, eating, drinking, and all that. And then like also towards the end, like Babi gifts her with basically promise rings at the beach late at night when they're all drunk and stuff.
That was cute.
But hey, that was cute. So this is where we get into the drama. So,
dun, dun, dun.
Yes, the biggest drama. So Yumi actually goes out into the town the next day after Ruby and Ida leaves and Bobby's at work. So, you know, she's just hanging out at his place while she waits for him to get off work. And then she sees his car when she's out in town around the time he's getting off. And a girl comes out of her passenger seat. A very young, pretty girl. So then we get introduced to Daun, who we later find out is an intern in Bobby's department and also happens to be his neighbor. So not only does they work together, they're neighbors.
Not a coincidence at all.
No, not at all. So my thing was really just how you felt about like Yumi. First, when she first sees Dawn, but then like when she actually starts talking to her, because I wrote down the scenario where like they talk briefly when she brings Cole over, because Bobby's grilling for him and Yumi, and then they start talking a little bit, and then like she starts making all these comparisons, and she does, I feel like kind of makes a lot of excuses, like, oh, she's young and like young, clueless, and like bubbly because she's young.
So her initial interaction, like her initial thought when she saw her come out of the car, I think was justified because like, even though I think he does tell her that there's an intern and everything, I don't think he gave her like the specifics. So for her to be shocked like that was completely normal.
Yeah, and even in like the parentheses too, if you watch in like English subtitles, because you know, I think a lot of the confusion happens because like in their language in Korean, like they truly really don't have like specific like pronouns for people, like, you know, he, she, and all that to distinguish the gender. So like even if she said the name, like that was the miscommunications at the beginning from season 1 with her and Wung with Sei, because she didn't know Sei was a woman, because Wung could have talked about her all day, but unless he said it like, oh, she's a woman, you wouldn't know, because they don't really have specific pronouns like we do in English to distinguish unless they get specific. So yeah, it's just another big cycle, but I feel like it's different because Wung and Sei knew each other and they were friends, and we knew Sei was kind of trying to sabotage their relationship compared to Babi Daun.
But for this one though, even though she was like, I'm glad she gave her the benefit of the doubt, because she wasn't intentional about her feelings, you know, like,
yeah,
she wasn't trying to sabotage anything. So it was really like out of innocence. which is why I'm like, okay, I'm glad she wasn't like rude or mean or anything like that to her, because like it wasn't like she was trying to get in the way. Like
Right.
even at the barbecue, like she was trying to leave before Yumi came back, so it was not like something she wanted to do.
Yeah, and Bobby's like, "Oh, stay," and you're like, "Bitch, she's
The
done."
problem is Bobby, honestly. He's too nice.
And not for his own good.
Right.
So, and then I also just wanted to ask you your opinion of the whole, which I feel like really stirs up thing, even in the comic of Bobby giving her his jacket when she's cold. Because in the show, they really do a good job of like Yumi having a flashback of like when he did that with her when she was dating Wung. This is kind of what I meant, like when I teased when we talked about season 1, how Bobby has a pattern. Because he also had a girlfriend at that time.
That's true.
And like he does it out of like kind of innocence, and he doesn't understand like certain things he does, even if it is out of kindness and harmful, how it looks on like the outside of perspective, even if he is in a relationship. And that is coming from someone who like does not try to look into too much of certain things, but there is like I said, not only a pattern, but like especially you can just tell sometimes when it has a different meaning, even if the other person doesn't realize it yet, you know?
Yeah. How did I feel about that? I think with the intern, it's a little different because he hesitated. I don't know if you remember that part where he was just standing outside his car and it was like cold or something. Like he was like actually fighting back and forth with his thoughts. It's like, okay, should I help her? Should I not? And in the end, he does help her. But like with Yumi, it was never like a battle. Like he gave her his jacket, like point blank. There was no second guessing that. So I think, yes, he does have a pattern, but the intentions are different.
Are we sure there wasn't a battle? Because this was still around the time we were getting introduced to Bobby. So it's not like we really had an insight of like his cells and like what they were going through. So honestly, we don't even know if there was a battle at the time with Yumi as well. And just because he was still being really introduced, we didn't get to see that.
I don't think so, because like if like when it comes to like certain key points, they do a really good job of showing the cells for it. But like when she was like drunk or something, he gave her his jacket. But like with the intern, you do see the cells. So it's like, okay, I don't know, like there's a pattern, but at the same time, it's like the intentions seem different to me by the way they presented it, if that makes sense.
I get it. And then this is where I also wrote down like a huge significant difference. So that whole scene, you know, in Jeju where they're like celebrating, eating out, and all that. So the one with Ruby, Yida, and Bobby and Yumi. So in the webcomic, this all actually happens in Seoul. And later on, I'll bring up why this all happens in Seoul. But it is actually between her chief. So just think about that scene. But instead of like Ruby and Ida, it is with Bobby, Yumi, the chief editor, and another character that like they completely basically just removed from the show. So her name was Park Yoon-hee. And I bring her up because, you know, that whole part of like her boss telling her that they had someone else in mind for like the accounting positions they were had an opening for. Well, she was actually one of the new hires for the accounting position. So she was actually a new like little trainee in Yumi's old company. And she actually plays a pretty significant role in the webtoon. It's amazing how they were able to write around her. And then because Ruby actually trains her, and Yumi actually meets her because she actually does go back to her old job for a little bit to work part-time in the comic because her friend Yida actually asks her, not her old boss, to fill in for Ida because she is actually getting married. And the time that she asked Yumi to fill in for her was because she was going to be away for her honeymoon. Now, I'll get to that a little bit later because we all know in the show it's a little bit different because she does get married in the show, but to someone else. Again, I'll bring that up, but just remember this. In the comic, Yumi actually does go back to work for a little bit because her friend Ida asks her because she's going to be away from her honeymoon, not her boss. Her boss actually does ask if she wants to stay a little bit, but then he backtracks and like they're not hiring for until like next year. So that whole thing does happen, but Yumi actually does end up going back to work for a little bit, and that's where she meets the character that we didn't get introduced to, which was Park Yoon-hee.
Okay.
And then we see a little bit more in the webcomic of, you know, Yumi working her part-time job at the store, because the book owner actually is also in a relationship, and because we see the girlfriend actually popping up a lot more when Yumi gets hired, because she is actually worried that, I put in quotation mark, is going to steal her man. So
isn't
we get introduced to
the bookshop owner like an old man in the show?
No, he's actually pretty young.
Is he?
Yeah, I would assume he's probably in his like mid to late 30s, maybe.
Oh.
Probably the same age around Yumi. Yeah. We only see him once, but he's actually a pretty relatively young guy.
Oh, okay.
In the show. Yeah. So, but he had a girlfriend that we never get introduced to. And the girlfriend's actually pretty important in the show, or not in the show, in the webcomic, because she actually, once they kind of get over that, because I think once Yumi starts working there for a little bit and she finds out she has a boyfriend, she kind of gets over that, but she still comes by all the time just to see her boyfriend. And the book owner's like girlfriend actually helps Yumi a lot with her writing. Yumi actually goes to her to like get some feedback, to like give her first drafts. The story that she submits, which is called Love Muse. Dear Lord, I'm malfunctioning right now for some reason. Which is the same name in the comic and in the show. And that is the story that Yumi submits that the chief editor, you know, sees and picks up and wants to make a real novel. The girlfriend was actually the one that helped her with her draft before she submitted it into the contest, and was the one that was telling her, like, you know, it's good, but you can change this and this, you know, giving her feedback and all that. So she actually played a really important role. I already said this, that Ida is actually the one that asks Yumi to fill in because she's getting married. I'll reveal who she actually gets married to a little bit later in the webcomic, because his character gets like, you know, briefly introduced in the show as well. I'm trying to go through my notes to see what I need to say or what I already said. Oh yeah, so another thing that we don't see is that the only reason she thinks about going back to her old job is working at actually gets shut down, like they're closing it because the owner of the building wants to sell it.
Oh, okay.
And I will talk about a little bit later also, because that's also very important of who buys the little like spot that they are in, because this also goes into another huge story that they changed. But I'll bring it up a little bit later.
You weren't kidding when you said they changed a lot.
Girl, I told you, that's why I said I had a lot of notes. And like, I just always find it interesting. So that's why I'm really bringing it up. Yeah. And I feel like it's interesting for you, for someone who only watched the show and didn't watch the web comic. And hopefully for people that are listening to this as well, if you didn't watch the webtoon, but you didn't read the webtoon, not watched it, but you watched the show. Again, guys, excuse me. For some reason, I'm malfunctioning right now. I'll get it together a little bit later. And I also thought it was interesting, like when Babi, you know, transfers to Jeju, because in the comic, he actually is already from there. They move Babi around a lot in this company. So he originally was in Jeju and transferred to Seoul. So when he goes back, unlike in the show, everyone already knows him there. So,
oh, okay.
Yeah, they pretend like it's a new office. And then another interesting, like, difference is that when Babi takes Yumi to the beach on Jeju, it's around like a sunset. And then at first Yumi was going to tell Babi that she was actually planning to move to Jeju to be closer to him, because, you know, she's not really working. So she's like, I can write anywhere. But then before they even start talking about it, he tells her that he told them that he wanted to be transferred back to Seoul to be closer to Yumi and his family. So a lot of the stuff that happened, especially when I talked about when her editor, the girl that they took out, and Yumi and Babi, they all went to the restaurant. They were already back in Seoul because Babi actually already transferred back to Seoul from Jeju. Yes. And around that time also, she thought he was going to propose to her.
This is all the webtoon, right?
Yeah, this is still all the webtoon.
Okay.
Yumi thought that Babi was going to propose, and he never does. But a little bit later, he actually does give her rings. But he only gives her a ring, and he's not wearing a ring. And he tells her at the time that it wasn't a couple ring. He just saw the ring, and he just thought it would look good on her. So, yeah. And that also is important a little bit later. So.
And you said he was more problematic in the webtoon?
No, he was more problematic in the show.
Oh, okay.
I feel like he was problematic either way, but I feel like I said, because I can read into it more, I sympathize a little bit better in the webtoon than the show. So, but let us move on, because this is where another big talky points are, is episode 8 and 9. And then this is where I talk about like the thing I was telling you about that they changed, besides all the other stuff. But this is what I had in mind that I knew for a fact changed before I went back and reread everything. So right away, episode 8, we know that Dawn has a huge crush on Babi. She uses a slang word, which basically shortened words. I'm not going to say it right now because I'm having a hard time talking. I know the slang word is Seje Nam, which is basically like a way of saying he's very handsome. And it's really weird how like she, I guess, noticed stuff, because like there's a point where he comes in and basically yells at all of them because one of the interns made a mistake, and she's like, oh, he's so charismatic. I was like, girl, he was just yelling at y'all because you messed up.
People believe what they want to believe.
Yeah, I guess, because like she called him like the Seje Nam like over and over again, sexy and charismatic. But then when he gives her a ride to work one day, she sees a picture of Yumi on his phone and then realizes that he actually has a girlfriend. And I think she also says like he is in a category of like out of your league because like someone that handsome, and her quotes like, I don't know if she called him perfect or not, but like it's either there's something wrong with them or like
she saw herself as less. Yeah,
or they have like a significant other. So, I didn't mention this because there was an interesting point like back in episode 7 where Yumi asks Babi when he started liking her.
Oh, yeah.
And like the love cell was going to answer, but then sensitivity knocked him out.
And that was triggered. That was triggered by her seeing the girl come out of his car.
Yeah. And I was like, wait a minute. That's what kind of bothered me. I'm like, why are they hiding when he started to like her? That's what I was saying about there is a pattern, because I feel like he started liking her when he had his old girlfriend. And that's why I didn't want to tell Yumi.
Yeah.
Because like Love Cell had a scroll of like those memories, and like Sensitivity and Reason Cell kind of gang up. They burn the scroll and they replace it with the new one after they knock Love Cell out. And when he regains consciousness, he reads off that scroll, think he was it. And even he was like, God, this doesn't seem right. I don't think this is when we started liking Yumi, but he doesn't really question it anymore. So that's another thing where I'm like, this is a pattern that he doesn't notice. So he comes up with, I don't remember what he actually said when he started liking Yumi. I think it's when he saw her dancing when they worked together to the music they liked together.
Oh, yeah. That's
but
what
obviously, we can all tell that that's not really what it was. Before. That's why I really have a feeling it was around the time where not only when Yumi was dating Wung, but when Babi was also dating his girlfriend. So, and then this is when we get more and see more interaction with the editor-in-chief. And Yumi. And I also didn't bring up that like the editor-in-chief and Yumi not really knew each other, but like the editor-in-chief basically had some classes with Yumi and he had like a huge crush on her, but he never had the courage to really go up to her, which I don't blame Yumi for not knowing him.
Yeah.
So, because he never, made an F. He was too shy, so he never actually tried to get to know her. But again, guys, full circle. See how everyone's connected in some way?
Very natural for a K-drama.
Right, honestly. But then like later on in the episode, I forgot what Yumi and Babi are talking about, but he tells Yumi that Dawn actually left and she's moving to Busan for another like position. Either another position at that company or another job. I mean, she was only an intern. But then after that, because Yumi's kind of like starts getting suspicious, like, that's kind of weird how she just kind of left like that. And I don't think her internship was over. But then, and this is what made me mad, especially with Dawn, she is, saying like kind of goodbye to Bobby when she sees him at the bus stop because he left his car at his job. And like she's talking and she basically tries to tell him that she likes him, but trying to use a scenario of it's someone else. But we can all tell, and even Bobby knows because he's not dumb, that she is talking about him.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's like, okay, well, bye. I mean, I guess I know now that you quit because of me. But when Bobby gets his car back and sees her leaving with her parents is when there is an earthquake in the village. And that's supposed to represent that he got swayed by her because he thought she was cute.
Yeah. He said it multiple times before that, too, that she's cute. But not in like a I'm interested in you type way, though.
Right.
Honestly, I think that's normal.
I mean, it is. And we'll get into it a little bit later because I think I wrote some notes about Yumi's reaction to it. Because I mean, hey, if I see an attractive person, I'm gonna say if they're attractive or not.
Yeah.
And it could be completely innocent. Doesn't mean I have an interest in dating them. It's like, oh, there is a good looking person over there. I'm acknowledging that you are good looking.
Yeah.
So
yeah. But we'll get into that later.
Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into episode 9 where we meet Control Z for the first time, and him and Yumi do not get along at all. Yeah. They're very like little snippy remarks to each other, but Control Z is a very interesting character. Now, did you know why they hired him? Because at first I didn't realize it's because they already hired him to create, the book cover for her book, but then they keep him on because they end up turning her book into a web series, basically. Yeah. So that's why he's illustrating her novel into the web series. But then there's also another part where Yumi goes back to Jeju to visit Bobby. And when she arrives at his house that he's at, she runs into a realtor and a couple looking at the place and finds out that Bobby has plans to move, not back to Seoul yet, but just move to be what he says closer to his job. We all know that's lies. So
imagine her shock.
It's like, oh, that's kind of weird. She's starting to put the pieces together. So then there comes a point, I don't know if it's the same, I think it's the same day at night where Yumi went somewhere. I think, like I said, guys, everything happens Christmas Eve. I think it was Christmas Eve. She went to go buy a cake for them to celebrate. Because I don't know if people know this, because they don't really celebrate Christmas over there like we do. Like, it is a holiday they use really for couples.
Yeah.
So I think that's why everything always happens, especially in our relationships, on Christmas Eve. But when she goes back, she basically sees Dawn over there looking at his tree. And then they start talking. And then Yumi tells her that Bobby's moving. And then Dawn's dumb ass says, is it because of me? And that's when everything falls apart. And this girl's sitting here crying to the girlfriend. And I was like, oh my God, girl.
I will say, though, Yumi handled her really well. Like, that could have gone in so many different ways.
And I think that comes with maturity in her first relationship. Mm-hmm. I don't know, because, with the whole Sei thing, I really feel like she learned from that.
Yeah.
So, because she starts going back into like a memory of like rules she had for like when she dates. And I always thought that was interesting. Like Love Cell was like going back and like shredding some of those rules and like dislikes. Because that's what you and me were talking about. Like she had a rule of like if a guy looks at another girl and calls him cute. And that's when I was like, I mean, he could just be saying like, pointing out someone's cute. There's an innocence in that. There's something else that she brings up. I think being kind to another girl. Again, this is why I say Yumi's very old-fashioned, and she shreds that. But the thing that stops her is when she talks about if a guy is swayed by another girl, and that's when we get into the whole, at first she, she framed it as her like number one dislike, and that's when Yumi basically packs up and leaves, and Bobby sees that she's not there. He calls her and she doesn't answer. He goes looking for her, finds her in a cafe, and she basically confronts him like, why are you moving? And at first she just listens to him like try to come up with excuses, and then she's basically like, is it because of Dawn? And when he hesitates, that's when she knew.
Yeah.
And she actually broke up with him right there. But then,
Right then and there.
Yeah, and we were about to go into the whole thing like with Wung, like, okay, it's been so and so as long as they broke up. This is her fourth relationship. But then he interrupts that because that's how Bobby is and tries to apologize. And that's when it's interesting to see how Love Cell basically goes on like a whole rampage when like Bobby apologizes and tries to make up excuses, and begs her basically not to break up break up. And she loses it. Love Cell, at least. Yeah. She gets horns. She starts, spewing fire in the whole town. And, I just thought it was interesting how I agreed with Yumi where she's like, if we continue to date, I'm not going to be able to treat you the same and pretend this didn't happen.
That's true. Yeah, because that's a pretty big thing. But at the same time, though, like I was saying, it's completely normal for that to happen. I mean, that didn't affect his relationship with her. He treated her just the same. He had no intentions of breaking up with her. He had no intentions of pursuing the intern. So it's like, I think she kind of overreacted, from my opinion.
I don't really know how I feel about it because I don't know. Because
the bigger thing is though, like he did something about it. Like he actually was going to move. That, I don't know, was the best move. I don't know if that was the best move. No pun intended. But
I think oh my God. I think that also started because like we said, they were neighbors. So like, and she was obviously still living with her parents. So her parents, I think, they sent him some like oranges thanking him for like being nice to her. And that's kind of initiated the move, really, if we're being honest. So because it would have been awkward to still like living next door to her parents, and there's a chance that like if she comes visits him or visits them, he runs into her. Yeah. So,
but he was doing something about it.
I don't know. I'm kind of stumped on that.
I think
because it could have affected them later on.
Okay. When I mean that she overreacted, I mean like she was like gone that same night. She should have waited the night. She should have waited the night. Because like he brings this up later when he was having like his thoughts, like if he had reacted. No, he says like, I wish Yumi had trusted me the way I trusted her when she went to give back that picture to Wung.
Yeah, but like, because I also wrote that on my notes. I guess I'll talk about it now. I feel like that was different because he already knew Yumi didn't have lingering feelings for Wung. Like she wasn't swayed in any way. I feel like he did.
I felt he was nervous about that, but he was like, "Let me trust her and see what happens from there." That's the vibe I got.
I don't know. I have no way to like debate this either because I truly don't know how I feel about it in either situation. So it is like a trust thing, but at the same time, I feel like, you know what? I just don't know.
Yeah. So actually, this was a point of controversy too, amongst like the people on like Reddit and stuff. Like, does his behavior count as cheating? Him like being swayed by somebody else? I wouldn't think so, but there is such thing as emotional cheating. So like in that sense, probably.
Well, remember when we did our movie review for What If? We talked about that.
Yeah.
Emotional cheating. Because like what leads to the physical cheating a lot is the emotional cheating, whether it's the dead emotions you have of your current partner or the new emotions you develop for the person you're eventually going to, cheat with. So I feel like cheating does not happen unless there is some type of emotion there. The emotion, to me, emotions always comes first when it comes to cheating. That's why I was like, we don't know if like later on, he's not that type of person, but if it did affect like the relationship, like I don't think he would ever cheated on Yumi, but he might have like started treating her different as far as like not being as attentive as far as like their romance.
I don't know.
I don't know either. Because now that we talk about this.
Okay, from how I understood, like from what I understood and how they portrayed it, it never seemed like Yumi was never in the number one spot. Like she was always there, regardless of the intern or not. Like the intern was just an addition, but like I don't think he's wrong to be swayed, but the way he dealt with it and the way he dealt with it was wrong. Like moving away was not going to change that. just because you were moving away from her doesn't mean it's not going to happen again, you know? But
Exactly.
like I wish she had waited like at least a night and like calmed down and actually thought about it, because they could have recovered from it, especially if it was a pattern and she noticed it too and brought it up to him.
Yeah. I feel like the way she is, she did need to get away. I don't know if it would have been smart, like not go back to Seoul, but maybe get a hotel. I don't think she could have stand in that moment being with Bobby, even if she had calmed
Yeah.
down. So I don't blame her for leaving, but I don't know if, like you're saying, maybe if she like went to a hotel, then came back. I just knew she wanted to get away. And some people are like that. Like, I just need to be, because like how we express, she's introverted. So I feel like a lot of introverts, like when things like that happen, I can talk from experience. Sometimes like I need to be by myself to collect and think before I try to talk to that person and be less emotional. So that way, when we start talking, we can be more rational about it than emotional about it, you know?
That's what I meant.
That's why her sensitivity needs to be locked away with her inner feelings.
No, that's what I meant. Like, she just needed space from him, but not necessarily like go back home.
And like, we also don't know if she was, like we were saying, patterns, if she just thought this was going to be another Wung and Say thing where she just needs to go ahead and leave this time instead of trying to stay with it.
No, I think she noticed the pattern, because she wouldn't have asked him, when did you start liking me, if she didn't notice it, you know?
Yeah.
But, I don't know. All I will say, though, is that him being swayed is not the problem. It's the way he reacted to that. Because, like I said, moving away is not going to change his behavior, because it could just happen again. But with Yumi, though, yes.
So real quick, before we keep going, let me bring up the difference between the webtoon and the show. Before I do that real quick, just find out that Yumi actually appears in the town. She was able to calm down Love Cell. And then she has to...
Oh, so she stays?
No, I meant like, you know, in her mind, when she's on the plane, Yumi kind of like appears in the cell town. That's what I meant. Okay. To calm Love Cell down. Yes. Because she actually tells her, like, when she's I felt so bad for little Love Cell when she's sitting there like sobbing. Like, the reason Yumi valued relationships so much and always put her boyfriends as number one is because she thought that was the only way for her to be happy. And I think that whole situation with Babi kind of like shows her she can find other outlets to be happy. She does not need to be in a relationship to be happy. So she kind of gets to the point where she's like, I want to put myself first, basically. And then Writer Cell becomes the next Prime Cell, which that's going to be interesting. But we end with that for episode 9. And before we keep talking about this, I want to bring up the webtoon versus the show. So when all this is happening, like I said, Babi has already moved back to Seoul. And like I mentioned before, we know that his father owns a tteokbokki restaurant. So basically there's a point where like Babi goes to help his dad one night run the restaurant. And like he's always pressuring Babi to try to take over the restaurant. But he's like, I don't really want to. And then one night when he's helping him, he's like, you know, I say because like his prime cell, which was his Scrooge cell, finally dies. So like his father's kind of like at a peace and he wants to just retire. And he tells him, you know, just to focus on what you love to do. He wants him to be happy and that he's thinking of retiring and selling the building so he doesn't actually have to take over it. But like what they show in the webcomic is Babi actually really likes making tteokbokki because he makes it for Yumi one time and she's like ecstatic. She's like, this is so much better than your father's, you know, giving him all praise and high stuff. So when I talked earlier about the bookstore closing, we actually find out that Babi bought it and he turns it into his own tteokbokki restaurant. So the biggest difference is that Babi actually quits the same company and starts his own tteokbokki restaurant. And when we get introduced to Dawn, it's because she becomes a part-time worker at Babi's restaurant. So that's how we initially get introduced to her.
Okay, that's completely different.
Yes, because we see more of the dynamic of between her and Babi interacting because she is his only part-time worker. So they have more time to like, you know,
get
do
to know
things.
Each other. Yeah.
And like when he's going through that whole revelation of when she makes mistakes, yeah, it's because of the restaurant where she's like bumping into stuff, getting people's orders wrong, breaking plates, all that good stuff. So what I was talking about, they kind of replaced this cell with love cell in the show, but Bobby has a cell. At first they thought it was called the kindness cell, but it's really his overreacting cell. So Bobby actually himself has his own overreacting cell, but he just hides it better. And that's when I bring up the patterns, because his overreacting cell is the reason he is too kind, especially to women. And it's like his cell can't tell the difference between being kind and flirting, and basically just honestly just boundaries in general. Because if he does something and cells point it out to his overreacting cell, his cell will be like, well, why is it such a big deal? You know, things like that, trying to justify what he's doing. So I think it's interesting because there's a point in the comic with that cell and everything that's happening before they really break up. Bobby kind of like goes back and has kind of like an internal like look on himself of like all the reasons that he does things and kind of justifies it, except with Dawn. Because when he gives Dawn the jacket and he tries to do that, his like future self's like, that's not the reason. Like, you weren't just trying to be kind. There's even a point where he says Bobby is not kind without a reason. So in the comic, his initial reason of giving Dawn the jacket is because he started feeling for her. And that's actually point out blatantly in the webcomic than it is in the show. Because that's how we get into the whole thing where like one of the cells put on, she's kind of cute. And then they're like, yeah. So that's why I think reading and watching it, I'm having this conflict of like, was he in the right? Was it truly as innocent as we're trying to debate? You know, things like that. Because in the
Simone, that changes things.
I'm sorry. In the book, like we really it's actually point blank, and they even say it. He really did do that because he started to like fall for her.
Okay, so that was definitely intentional. So yes, that is cheating.
That's why I said it's different between...
My boy cheated.
Yes, that's why I was saying it's different between Wung and Yumi when they met up, and Bobby and Dawn. Yumi never had any intentions of really going back to him. And even like how you were talking about earlier, you think Yumi really got with Bobby because of guilt. I really think that's really why she went back, you know, to see Wung again, because she kind of felt guilty in a way.
No, they kind of emphasize that, though. They emphasize that in the show, that like, even though you can tell she didn't want to get back with him, but because she felt guilty that she wasn't there for him when like things were really bad in his life, like she went back just for the sake of humanity, I guess you could say.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
And for her own inner peace, and to give his, you know, his drawing back. So
yeah, but no, like coming back to the webtoon, then yes, in that case I would say he did. But the way they portrayed it in the show made it seem like it was like an innocent thing, you know? Like he didn't have the intention, but...
And they do a little bit in the webcomic as well. But like I said, that one scene, that's why I need people to go read this webcomic. You kind of see, like, he tries to push it off, but when he talks to his old past self around the time he gives the jacket, and his future self is kind of like, that's not why you did it.
Yeah, no, definitely in the show they portrayed it much more innocently. But, I mean, I'm not mad she wanted to break up with him, but like...
I'm not either.
I don't know. Like I keep saying, the way he handled it in the show is just not the correct way to do it, but it is what it is.
Yeah, let's go ahead and move on. God, this is going to be probably our longest show or our longest episode, but we had a lot to say about this show. So we're just going to keep pushing forward. So basically we see all the changes that happen. Like I said, Writer Cell becomes a Prime Cell. Fashion Cell turns into a fashion terrorist, and this like little stingy... cheap cell turns into the giving tree, and like we see basically how Yumi's doing after the breakup. And I'm just gonna put a little PSA, guys. You don't have to completely change. You can still dress nicely for yourself, okay? That's all I'm just gonna say.
I loved how
it's okay.
Oh no, keep going because this changes later.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say, so this is the episode where we see like how Yumi isn't the only one that changed. So like our good man Wung that me and Nafisa are rooting for, he has finally gotten his game taken off. And when I mentioned the game that Ruby and Ida was playing earlier, it's his game. So like, you know, he was able to start his own company, basically become a big CEO. He went from rags to riches, literally. And I love his friendship. I know we don't talk about Lewis that much, but like in the show, how they portray like he basically brought Lewis everywhere. I appreciate that from someone who is with you from rock bottom and you bring them up. Like, I love people like that. So that's something I strive to do with like my close friends. If I ever become successful like that, bring them along because they were with you through the whole time. So,
and the other thing is like his personality never changed either. Like just because he's now a hotshot CEO, he's still the same.
Exactly. So, and then I think they did put a pretty good emphasis in the webcomic and in the show how like I really think Yumi returning, you know, that picture she had to him really re-inspired him to get back into the game. So, of course, like with everything else, because like Wung still has, you know, lingering feelings for her, but still, she helped him still along the way. She helped
him, Babi helped her. It's all coming together.
All a big circle, as I keep saying. I did think it was interesting, though, how, like, Wung finds out that Yumi's boyfriend, because she didn't tell him who she was seeing when she was selling the rice cooker to him. But she goes on his Yumi's social media and finds out that her boyfriend is Babi. And I thought that whole thing was interesting because he also goes back to, like I said, as a pattern. Like, he noticed when he was freaking out about, like, Babi and Yumi always being together when Wung and Yumi were together, how, like, his suspicions were kind of correct.
Yeah. But at least he never doubted her, though, because then, you know, that's a good thing. He trusted her, but not him.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true, which is interesting.
And that's how it should be whenever there's dynamics like that. Trust the partner.
Yeah, but it always doesn't happen that way.
I know.
So, again, and like Lewis is the one who actually tells Wung that Yumi became a writer. So I thought it was really sweet. That scene where Wung goes and buys up Yumi's books. And that's when I screamed at my TV, get back together already.
And like he makes comments every morning, every single day.
Still being so supportive.
It's like, oh, what a great person he is. But what bothered me though, you didn't mention this yet, but like the way she gave Babi a chance, I wish she gave Wung a chance too.
I was going to because it's in the next episode. So, because in the show, all this is still happening because when she breaks up with Babi, he's still in Jeju. But then like towards the very end of the episode, that's when her friend Ida calls her and tells her that Babi moved back to Seoul. So now Yumi has to like basically, now I have to deal with my ex-boyfriend. Another one of my ex-boyfriends living in town. So yeah. So we'll basically go on to the next one of, like you said, we see that Wung is actually one of the ones that is like leaving all these comments on Yumi saying to give her encouragement. Made like, I think he literally had like 20 different accounts he had written on the piece of paper. I was like, I just wanted them to get back together.
And it's funny too, because like when she's reading the comments, she was really loving the ones that he made too. It's like, guys, the subconscious is already telling you.
Yes, but anyway, getting deeper into the episode, how you started talking, basically, Yumi runs back into Babi at the coffee shop and like, you know, it's different than when she saw Wung because like he's basically saying like it was a mistake, basically begging her to get back together. And then that's when we really see Yumi struggle and like get swayed.
Yeah.
And emotional sensitivity take over and kind of like banish reason for a little bit. So she basically kind of, you know, agrees to go back out with Babi and she looks miserable.
Yeah.
I wrote that down. She looks miserable.
I just feel like their whole relationship is literally guilt-based. Like,
I told you, rebound. So, because like, you know, and I didn't know if they did it in the show, but I was watching more. They did it in the show and the comic. You notice how when they get back together, she starts seeing him as that little paper, not all the way drawn character that she first saw him as. So that should really tell you something.
Yeah, whatever was there before is just not there anymore.
Yeah. So, I mean, I feel like we already did talk about this. The the whole comparison of like when Babi let in quotation marks Yumi go talk to Wung compared to what he did and the whole trust thing. I feel like we already really talked about that, right? Was there anything else you wanted to bring up on that or no?
No, did you?
Not really, since we already discussed it. So, but then like I think at the end of this episode is like she's seeing Wung a little bit more. They have a discussion. I don't really remember what all she says. Oh, because Wung found out they broke up. But then when he goes and has the courage to basically try to ask Yumi out again, he finds out through Yumi that she decided to try it again with Babi. So, and then when he's all emotional distracted.
Can we mention Control Z's role in all of this? Because he's so observant. Like, she'd dress like a bum and he'd be okay with it. And then suddenly when she got back together, she started dressing nicer. And you remember that scene when they were in the coffee shop and he was like, why are you so dressed up? You're probably dating again. And she's like, no, I am dressed up because I came to see you. And he's like, no, I'm pretty sure that is not the case.
Which is funny because another thing, difference between show and the webtoon. So like when Yumi and Wung kind of start talking a little bit more, he kind of gives her like a little code to play the game, but she doesn't use it because she doesn't play the game. So the reason Control Z kind of found out that Wung still has feelings is because he took that code, and in the code, which I kind of wish they showed in the show, Wung kind of alternates it to where he basically makes like a whole little animation of like Wung and Yumi's relationship to try to get her back.
Aww.
I know.
That's actually really creative.
I know. That's when Control Z kind of decides to try to help them a little bit, but he also didn't know that she got back together with Babi. So we're basically going to get into the Babi versus Wung at the hospital when Wung hurts himself. I mean, how do you feel about it?
I'm glad it happened, actually. Because, like, Bobby's doing all of these things, and Wung's just like, okay. And, like, he's just watching it. So I'm glad he actually finally said something. Because it really starts when, like, him, Bobby, who else was it? Ruby and Yumi, they all went out to drink or eat. Give Yumi his jacket. And he's just watching, like, why is she? It literally just starts from there. Like, he's noticing all these behavioral patterns, but he's not saying anything about. Like, I felt like he was pretty cool about it. And then, like, finally, what really triggered him is when he found out that he did what he did, that Bobby did what he did, and then he was like, okay, now I get to say something. So I'm glad he did.
You know, I thought it was also interesting how, like, when Yumi stopped them from, like, going back and forth, how she remembered not fight, but like the confrontation she had with Sei. So I guess she says she understands why Wung stopped her at that time, but I personally still feel like it's different because the difference between Wung and Sei, Wung never really tried to sabotage her relationship with Bobby, and Sei was. So I feel like that in a sense was different. Like, even though he still had lingering feelings for Yumi through everything, his feelings for Bobby and not really liking him, he never tried to get in the middle. All he really cared about was Yumi's happiness.
He really did, yeah. And he only said something because
that's where he
knew Yumi was not like that, but that's, like, you know, that happened to her. So I would, like, you know, I understand why he was upset because, like, he did all that and she got back with him instead of getting back with Wung. Like, that would hurt for somebody who's so true, you know?
Listen, the pride did come out a little bit, but that would have hurt me as well. Because I feel like, honestly, what Bobby did hurt her a little bit more, or at least should have. And you decided to go back to him. Because at least Wung didn't really have feelings for anyone else. He was with you, like, for you 100%. He was just going through, like we keep mentioning, financial troubles.
See, that's what... If there's any ex she should have gone back with, it was Wung, as I keep saying.
I know. But still.
But I will say, though, like, the internal dialogue that they were both having, like, when they were both, like, you know, showing their claws, was quite interesting because Bobby said what he wanted to say in, like, the nicest way possible. And then Wung was like, okay, I'm not going to win in this battle because, like, he knew his shortcomings.
But then, like, he started getting cocky and showing off, like, you know how we were like, he's very humble. That's when he was like, I'm not going to be humble right now.
He should brag, though.
So he's like, oh, you're still working at the same place. Let me give you my business card. And I like in the captions on Viki, they do a good job of like trying to briefly show culture differences because they point out the way Wung was handing Babi his business card, because that's what they do a lot in Korea. The way he did it, like, kind of show like he's seniority instead of doing like the polite way of like either giving it to him with two hands, which obviously he couldn't because he had a cast, or like putting the arm with his cast is under his elbow to try to show respect, and he didn't. So that's what it's like. So when Nafis said you were in God, what's the show? Help me.
Itaewon Class?
Yes. I was like, oh, now I see your character from Itaewon Class in this scene.
I mean, completely sidelined, but he did a really good job in Itaewon Class. Like, I hated his character to the core. Oh,
I kind of wished at the beginning that, you know, he sent him to go see his father, but we're not talking about Itaewon Class right now. Let's get back to Yumi Cells, because this is going over. Yes. So all that, Yumi and Babi go through like miscommunications, because there's sometimes where like Bobby's still wearing the couple's ring and Yumi's not. And then when Yumi decided to put it back,
you can tell they were off their rocker, though. They were not in sync at all.
They just needed to... When she agreed to go back out with him, I'm like, this is going to be a disaster. And then like the first time that happened with the rings, I'm like, y'all just need to break up. You just need to break up. Yeah. This was a mistake. Even at the dinner, like that night when they decided to go back together.
Yeah.
Like, she was not into it. And then I didn't mention it, but like the next day when she had that nightmare and she woke up, I love her inner peace cell. When her inner peace cell is like, Yumi, it was all a dream. It's okay. You're in the real world. Don't forget you didn't do the dishes from last night. Also, you got back together with Babi. And the record scratch, she's like, wait, what? That wasn't part of the dream? I'm like, see, you just need to leave him alone.
Yeah. And like it gets worse and worse. Like, can we, like, he goes on a business trip, quote unquote, right?
Okay, hang on. I'm getting there. That's what I was getting. I had other stuff. We could skip right into it. So there is a part where Babi tells Yumi he is going on a business trip to the United States and he's going to be gone for 3 weeks because Yumi's kind of upset she doesn't get to spend his birthday with him. And you know what? I also thought it was interesting. You know what? No, we don't have time for that. So the day comes when Babi leaves. He sends a text to Yumi that he's on his way to the airport. And then that was it. Basically, throughout that whole week, we see them texting and calling each other.
That was so messed up. Can I cut you off for a second? That was very messed up. I was like, who does that? Who sends a text when they're going to a whole different country across the ocean? Like, what?
And you should have known something was off. She even knew something was off. Because, like, I mean, you could justify, like, the time difference. I don't know how it works with, like, international calls, especially when they use...
No.
Okay, it's fine.
If you're in a relationship, then. No. Sorry, no.
Okay, so yes, we could see and Yumi could tell something's off every time she is talking to Babi, whether it's through text or call, how he's a lot shorter than he normally is, which he's usually not like this. So basically one day when Yumi's going on a walk after she tries to call him, I think on his birthday.
Yeah, it's on his birthday.
Is it on his birthday? This all happens?
Because he didn't answer the phone.
And he doesn't answer the video call. So she goes for a walk and she sees someone in a taxi. She's like, that kind of looks like my boyfriend. That can't be him, though. He's all the way in the United States.
Right.
And then he goes by, and the cells are like, wait a minute, that is you, Babi. And she gets to the taxi. I love the taxi people, how they're just like, she's like, follow that taxi. They're like, okay. They don't question it. They're like, whatever you say, you're paying for the ride. So she follows him all the way to his house. And another thing, too, because, like, all their houses or apartments, they don't have keys. They just have, electronic key doors. So she knows the passcode to his apartment and she goes in and it's all quiet. And then guess who's standing there in the kitchen? It is you, Babi. And she's like, sir, aren't you supposed to be in America? Which, you know, when they were texting and calling, should have been suspicious because he never said where in America he was. Never gave a state, never gave a city.
That's true. I didn't catch that, actually.
Where in the factory in America he was. That already should have been y'all's, like, first concern. But anyway, we're not going to get to that. So then she confronts him about it, and then he comes around the counter with a crutch, and we see he has a cast on. And basically, he tells her on the way to the airport, he got in a car accident. And he just got discharged from the hospital. So the whole time Yumi was talking to him, he was in the hospital. And he didn't tell her because he didn't want her to worry. And that right there was when I wanted to jump through the screen, grab Yumi's wrist, be like, come on, Yumi, this relationship is not working anymore. You just need to leave. You need to leave this man alone. Break up with him. Because who the hell, not you supposed to be my boyfriend. Not only you didn't tell me you got into a car accident, but you lied to me for a whole week. Me thinking you're in a different country. And you're in the hospital because you didn't want me to worry? No, you just need to break up. You need to leave him the fuck alone.
Yeah. Mind you, I don't know if this happened before or after, but when she was sick, like, he knew. He was there taking care of her and everything like that. So, like, his reasoning of not...
That was after.
Whatever. Regardless, the reasoning of not wearing person, that's not okay.
But especially something that dramatic. Like, y'all are dating and you get hurt and you don't tell me? Because then they go into a whole thing where, like, they start asking each other, do you regret getting back together? He's like, I didn't tell you. Well, first he actually admits, he's like, I don't know why I didn't tell you. And then he's like, I thought you regretted to get back together with me. And she's like, I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You didn't have to. We could see it through your body language, through your face. Who are you playing, Yumi? Besides yourself. I almost stopped watching the show because of this. I'm sorry.
Really?
This was so ridiculous. I'm like, what sane non-psychopath does this? And let's be happy you just fractured something. You didn't lose a leg. You didn't lose your life.
Imagine if he did, though.
But how would I have known that if you didn't tell me?
Yeah, exactly.
Or like he became permanently like paralyzed.
That was a big boo-boo on his part.
But that's not the craziest part, people, because they start kissing. And I thought this was going to be a goodbye kiss. Like, okay, they've realized it. They're like, okay, this isn't clearly working out. We're just not on the same page. There's too many secrets now. This is a goodbye
exactly
kiss.
The same
and when
thing.
he says, shall we? I was like, okay, they're finally going to break up.
He's the one who's bringing it up.
Shall we get married? What?
I thought he was going to say, let's break up. But
shall we what?
We're just going to continue the toxicity is what we're doing here.
Huh? Married? Like married? Husband, wife? After I just felt...
Yumi's dumbass says yes.
If that ever happened to me, listen, I don't believe in blocking people, but I would have ran out of his apartment so fast, blocked him on everything. You would never hear from me again. You know what makes me even more mad?
What?
I mean, this whole situation doesn't happen in the webcomic, but there is a point where Babi actually does propose to Yumi, and she says no.
Oh, okay.
Because she realizes it's not working out.
Why did they make her dumber? Or more emotionally manipulated, I should say.
K-drama effect, I guess. I don't know. This shit had my blood boiling.
And I was like, he had his face ready for a breakup and he goes, let's get married.
I'm sorry, you hurt yourself. You lied to me for a week.
Yeah, it was so weird.
It's just why? Why? Basically, so they're all engaged, yada yada. Yumi finally meets her dad, Yumi finally meets his dad. Listen, that whole thing just threw me off. I'm just like...
I got my blood boiling too.
But honestly, really, I think that should have solidified it, but it doesn't. Nafis brought up she gets sick and Babi comes over and takes care of her. And when he goes out, he leaves his phone behind. And down on a drunk night of her birthday, starts calling Babi. And Yumi's like, I didn't break up with him because of this. It was mostly because when that happened, I didn't have a reaction to it.
Yeah, like
she was calm.
Normally she would if she did have feelings for him.
And that's when she realized, like, oh,
Yeah.
I don't care anymore. I just need to leave this man alone. Which is what you should have done when he lied to you that he broke his leg. But hey, it's fine. I guess y'all got past that. So,
but you know, I'm glad though. I'm glad she did get back together with him, just so she could move on. Like she wouldn't have any like, oh, maybe we could have done this, we could have done that. Like she knows now there was no chance of that working out.
I guess. Anyway, we do a whole time jump, and then there's a whole thing where like Yumi has to, you know, write for her manuscript, and then she loses her laptop and all that, and then like she goes to the wedding. This is what I'm saying. Like in the show, they bring they marry Ida and An Dae-young, which is her editor, together, even though in the comic, An Dae-young actually gets together with the character Park Yoo-jin that they Yoon-hee, I'm sorry, that they don't add. And then Ida actually gets married to the guy who gossips and spread the rumors, surprisingly, in the office, which he makes an appearance in season 1. You know, the guy who like confronts Yumi when she's dating Wung, and he sees her getting out the taxi. I think that's supposed to be him in the comic. Yeah. But anyway, yeah. So we'll just basically go on to the last episode. Like I said, she loses her laptop. Writer Cell goes AWOL, which I think is pretty funny because she cracks under pressure. So she doesn't want to be the prime cell anymore. But then the coffee shop that she left it at actually calls Babi. And I mean, when he returns it, I guess this kind of makes up for it. They had a mature closing and ending because Babi leaves it in a locker at the airport. Because he's being transferred to Singapore. Like I said, they keep moving this man like everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So now he's leaving for Singapore. And they have a nice, you know, closing, I feel like, at the end. And then again, why we keep it reiterating that Wung and her needed to get back together, even though they never will, is that like he sends her a new laptop.
Yeah.
And then when she goes to return it, she finds out he's the one that's leaving all the comments, which I thought was sweet.
I do want to mention though, like she in the episode itself acknowledges that Babi was a big reason why she got back into writing, why she's so successful. So I'm glad she at least acknowledged it. And she reaches out to him too to thank him. And he's like, we may not be together, but I'm still going to be a big fan of writer Yumi. So I thought that was really, really sweet.
That's what I mean. Like towards the end with both of them, she really becomes mature and like accepts how they helped her like grow in her life. And like, cause that goes into also like the cells have a little celebratory like award show, and they give the best cells to Babi's cells, and that's why she brings it up. And then they also make Wung like the co-winner.
Yeah.
So I thought that was cute.
Very adorable.
Yes. But then through all that, basically at the end, because I'm skipping because we're running out of time, guys. I'm sorry. This has already been long enough. You know, Yumi finishes. She gets past her writer's block thanks to Ruby calling her. She sends in her manuscript. They go party on Christmas Eve. This is the first time she's really spending Christmas Eve without a...
Ruby and Control Z, by the way, are together at this point.
Yes. I wanted to mention it, but like I said, we're running out of time, so I had to skip by it. But like, they become a couple, and they're adorable, so...
In the cutest way, too.
Yes. And then we also learn like the next morning, you know, Love Cell actually comes back because she was like banished after all that happened. And like they went to a whole thing where like she didn't come back when she met Wung again. She didn't come back when her and Babi got back together, but she came back on Christmas Eve. So we really don't know why at this point, but we basically end because the chief editor at the party when they're all drunk, which is hilarious watching Yumi like tell Ruby Control Z goodbye and Merry Christmas while she's all drunk. He introduces her to like a group of new people that are going to help with the company. Basically, like he calls them the next generation, and we get introduced to the new editor who's going to be in charge of her new book because the woman, which is his assistant, is going to be on maternity leave because she's pregnant. But basically, the last scene is like we get a shot of her laptop, and she gets a message from her new publisher, and he introduces himself as Shin Soon. I don't think I'm saying his name right. Shin Soon Rok. Now, Yumi met him at the party, but she was way too drunk to remember what he looked like, and they didn't show us his face. So yeah, we end there. So I hope they do with season 3.
I really hope so too.
Because I don't know if you I don't know if you understand what I'm implying here, Nafis.
Yeah.
That's her third boyfriend. That's her third and last boyfriend. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. This is the one she marries, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
This is the one for the long haul. So yeah, we end there. We get introduced to a new character, and that's pretty much it. All the trials and tribulations.
Hopefully she's learned from.
All the craziness that comes with. I hope so. I really hope so, God. And it only comes with age. But again, with all that, Nafis, how do you feel about everything we just discussed and dragged out?
Do I feel I didn't think it was dragged out. That's what I really like about this series is that like the show is not dragged.
I meant us, not the show, but
oh, say your question again.
Never mind. How do you feel? How do you feel about everything?
I feel better about it now that we've discussed it. Yeah.
Okay. It's good talking about it out loud.
Because I remember I was watching it. No, because I was watching it. I'm like, what? I need to talk about this. I need to talk about that. And we hit all those points. So it was good.
I'm glad. Yes, we did hit all the specific points. You guys already know I'm a huge fan of this web. And I like how I was able to tell you guys the difference between the webcomic and the show. I'm going to say this now. I don't think they're going to bring Babi back in season 3. I'm not sure since they got rid of him being a chef and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and spoil this now. And another reason why I didn't like you, Babi, because there's certain points where like, especially towards the end when she meets the third boyfriend where they talk about like signals, how like things from the future kind of hints their way through signals of the cells of like, this is going to be happening and things happen for a reason. So basically Babi and Dawn get together.
Do they?
In the end. He ends up marrying her and they have children. So
look at that.
Well, a child. Yeah. So
I kind of want them to bring him in for season 3. I want to see that.
I don't know if they're going to or not. I'd be very interested how they would, because like I said, they got rid of him not being a chef anymore. So he doesn't own the Toboki restaurant and he moved to Singapore, unless they are going to bring that in. But it'd be interesting to see how.
He'll just move back. It's no big deal.
They'll just put him back into the department again. Because like I said, they love moving him around.
Yeah. Or he might get a promotion. Who knows?
Ratings on season 2?
What did I give season 1? A 9?
I think so.
This one, I think I'll give this one a 9 as well. Because it ended off pretty well.
Yeah. I don't think mine has really changed either.
Overall, they didn't really stray from the way they did the storytelling. So I really liked that. Cinematography was really good. Just as it was in season 1. Overall, I really liked it.
Again, love the way they animate the cells. I would really like to see more shows like this. Like, I think they did a really good job, the cross of like animation and live action. So before we like really leave, I just want to read something I found real quick. It's really funny. Like when we were watching this, I barely go on Facebook, but I happened to go on Facebook this specific day to get rid of my notifications. And I saw a friend of mine shared something, and I thought this related to the story so well, I just had to share it, whether you believe it or not. But basically it says we fall in love with 3 people in our lifetime, each one for a specific reason. So the first love, this love often happens at a young age. You eventually grow apart and call it quits over silly things. When you get older, you may look back and think it wasn't love, but the truth is it was. It was love for what you knew love to be. Remember, there's different depths of love. And then second love is the hard one. You get hurt in this one. This love teaches us lessons and makes us stronger. This love includes great pains, lies, betrayal, abuse, drama, and damage. But this is the one where we grow. We realize we love about love and what we don't love about love. We know the difference between good and bad humans. Now we become closed, careful, cautious, and considerate. Know exactly what we want and don't want. No wonder I messed up on that. That doesn't make any sense. Okay, anyway. And then the third love. This one comes blindly. No warning. It creeps on you silently. You don't go looking for this love. It comes to you. You can put up any wall you want, but it'll eventually get broken down. You'll find yourself caring about that person without trying. They look nothing like your usual crush type, but you get lost in their eyes daily. You see beauty in their imperfection. You hide nothing from them. You want marriage and family with them. You want to thank the universe. You truly love them.
Aww.
Now, if this doesn't sum up Yumi Cell as a whole, like, perfectly,
I don't know what else would.
I was like, there's no way I cannot share this, because I really feel like this is like the premise of this whole story. So, yeah. we're gonna end it there because Nafis gotta go.
I do have to go.
And we've been here forever. So Nafis, can you please be kind and do the closing? Last thing I'll say is give Yumi Cells some love, the show, the webcomic. And I mean, honestly, just let us know what you guys think of everything we talked about in your own opinions.
Yes, please. All right, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in to I Was Thinking. If you would like to follow us, please follow us on our socials, our Twitter, Instagram. We don't have a Facebook, right? Just Twitter, Instagram.
That's it. Twitter and Instagram. I don't know if I should make a Facebook. We'll see.
Twitter, Instagram is just good.
Okay.
Yeah. So at I Was Thinking Pod, if you have any questions, suggestions, or anything like that, please email us at iwasthinkingpod@gmail.com. Other than that, we'll see you guys later.
Yes.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.